All right, we want to welcome everyone to Planning Commission tonight, December 7th. Commissioner Ernst is going to lead us in the pledge.
State it with me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everyone for being here tonight on this fun, snowy night. Glad everyone was able to get here safely. We'll start with a review for, everyone who's here, I guess. Good point, good point. Thanks for thinking of the positive side. We'll start with a motion on minutes or a discussion on minutes if there is one. If not, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move that we approve the minutes from last month.
November 2nd.
November 2nd, 2022.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Move into our first group of things in zone changes, the zoning map amendments 2022. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chair, thank you. If you've had a chance to look at the agenda, you've seen that we have quite a few different things that are being proposed here relative to amendments to the city's zoning map. I'm going to try to go through these pretty quick, just to be respectful of everybody's time. I'm comfortable doing that, particularly because none of these are essential. We think it's best practice from time to time to update our zoning map to make sure that zoning, in as much as is reasonable, does appropriately apply to the use of different properties. Many of the changes that we'll walk through one by one here apply to properties that Spanish Fork City owns. Properties, for example, that historically maybe had been zoned residentially and had been part of a residential development, perhaps via the process of having that residential development approved and constructed. Parks were constructed within that development, which has left us with situations where city-owned parks, for example, still have residential zoning, whereas we've set up a particular zoning district that is intended to apply to things like city parks and other municipal facilities. So again, not essential, but best practice. If you're comfortable, I'm going to just dive right in, and please stop me if you want to discuss any of these individually. Otherwise, again, it's because of the volume and the nature of the changes. I'll go kind of high level, and I'll try to go kind of quick here. To start with, there are a few different parks that are in the Legacy Farms development. The space that we're looking at here is just that. So per the development agreement for Legacy Farms, this property has been developed as a park or as open space. It's kind of the southern part of it. Currently it's zoned, as we showed, there are two different residential zoning districts, R19 and R112. The proposal for that is that the zoning be changed to public facilities. Next, similarly, much smaller piece of property. Really, it's the same situation, though. This is a project that Ivory Homes developed. I think they finished constructing it just a couple of years ago. There was a park included with that project, which I believe serves both as a recreational feature and serves a purpose relative to our storm drain system. Zoned residential, which not a problem. You can have parks in residential zone, but again, by way of trying to keep publicly owned facilities, things like parks, zone public facilities. That's why this proposal here is made. Next is the big one, the All Abilities Park. A couple of different zoning designations for that are just the result of the history of a couple of different properties that were acquired to be able to develop the All Abilities Park. There's also the dog park to the north of that. That was kind of park space even before the All Abilities Park came along also. There's some other municipal functions that are taken care of with the properties here, the power substation, storm drain component, and some things like that, all of which are, we think, most appropriately suited for the public facilities zone. Next, kind of an odd configuration here. We've got a trail and a park that was constructed as part of the Maple Mountain townhome project that's located directly south of the Sierra Bonita Elementary School. Same situation, publicly owned. It's a park. We expect it to be a park forever, and therefore suggest that the zoning be changed to public facilities. Our next one is just south of 400 North, a little bit to the north and west of Maple Mountain High School. Kind of a small parcel, same thing. Detention basin, it's gonna be basin/park. Public facilities is the proposal there. Moving on, getting into some things that are a little bit different. This next property has a really, really interesting history. I'm not entirely certain as to what that is and why it is zoned. The next one. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm out of order with what I printed, or I just skipped a couple. Sorry. I was ready to go on to another one. Yeah, Mike, back to, there we go. Thank you. I apologize for that. Same thing. Park. I've got to get my bearings on this one.
That looks like the one that's by Sierra Bonita. Is that not the one?
So this is the park that's north of Sierra Bonita Elementary School. Exactly. Yeah, we call this, I think, the Sierra Bonita Park.
The other one was
Okay.
in the condos, right?
Yeah, the other one was to the south of this. Maybe I'll just stop repeating the same thing. Same situation here. As is with the next one, this is the last one, I think, that pertains primarily to public facility zones. Other parks and legacy farms. There's a collection of other parks in addition to what we looked at on the first image. Same situation. Parks, trails, some of this was acquired from, some of it is being leased by the city from Rocky Mountain Power, the power line, which is kind of a linear park that today largely just goes through the Legacy Farms development, but is intended to continue all the way throughout the East Bench down to the Quiet Valley project. Same situation. Next ones start to get a little bit more interesting. This one here, strange history. We've speculated about what it is, and regardless of how it came to be zoned public facility. So this is kind of the opposite of what we were talking about, where this lot was assigned the public facility zone shortly after we created that zone, maybe 11 or 12 years ago. It doesn't make any sense that a privately owned piece of property be zoned that way. So the suggestion there is that the zoning be changed for it just to match what the surrounding neighborhood is zoned. The sort of same situation now. It's a little bit different with the next one, Mike, if we can go to that. With this next image, right now everything that's shown there that's proposed to be changed from public facilities to C2 previously was tied to the city's landfill, but was acquired by the Woodbury Corporation to be included with their commercial development. Some of it has been developed commercially already, some of it hasn't been, but is planned to be. Because of the change of ownership and just how the property's been put to a different use. Again, kind of the inverse of what we were talking about before. Zone public facilities previously, because the city owned it. Now the city doesn't, hence the proposed change.
What's this wedge? Just
Yeah.
Just that little pie shape.
It's just what is outlined in black there, yeah. The next one, probably one of the even less consequential ones of anything that we're proposing. That property, or the majority of what is outlined there in black, although not all of it, was purchased by the folks that are developing the Escala development there. Part of it was owned by the folks that developed the Old Mill Estates development that's next to it to the west. So just kind of a unique maybe history there. The home that is being constructed there on that lot is being constructed by Lennar. Do I have that right? I think I do. Yes, that is part of the Escala development, which is why it was zoned R3 with the zone change that was approved for Escala. Because it is a lot that conforms to the requirements for lots in the R115 zone, and because it really is intended to orient more to that neighborhood, the Old Mill Estates neighborhood, we felt like this was an appropriate cleanup as well.
Did we use that property in making any of the parking requirements for that group?
We wouldn't have because it's a single-family home.
Okay,
It shouldn't have
perfect.
impacted
I
that.
actually thought we discussed that then.
Doing this,
Yeah.
we did. We had some conversation about it.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Just using, okay. This is zoning that wasn't changed.
But that is still being developed by Lennar.
I would say has been developed by at this point, yeah. Yep.
Horizontals are done, I'm pretty sure.
Horizontals are done a lot of,
A lot of the
a lot of
units are-
vertical construction,
Yeah.
yeah, as well.
They did those.
They moved quickly. The next one, again, kind of in the spirit of cleaning some things up, as the alignment for US 6 and I-15 and some different things has changed over the years as some different trades were put into place with a large industrial use here, Hedro, in order to be able to make some streets work a little bit better with the Canyon Creek development next door. Zoning that was put in place before development occurred and different things like that led to just some zoning boundaries that really didn't follow parcel lines or uses or road rights of way or different things like that. This proposal would simply clean that up without affecting any of the legal rights that those property owners currently have. Again, just to clean up from a map perspective, really. I feel like we gotta be starting to wind down here.
Remind me, could you
yeah.
go back to that? Could you remind me what SC is?
Shopping center
Oh, okay.
Into I-1?
No, that's just,
to C2.
This
So
is
the
the
red is
hotel.
the,
I was
that's the
looking
hotel.
I was
and
looking at
then
this one.
yeah.
yep.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, so in that regard, that little bit of road would go to I-1 from the SC.
Makes sense.
And then the one from C2 to SC, is that where the hotel is?
Exactly, yeah. Just a small part of that would be changed, just so that the zoning boundary follows the right of way there. The next one, again, a cleanup. You approved a subdivision to the south of this property, I believe just earlier this year. And this property previously had been zoned, or a significant part of this at least, R3, which was, I think, one thing that happened with either the original Legacy Farms development or an amendment to the Legacy Farms development that had happened. But right now, with that being zoned R3 on the opposite side of Spanish Fork Parkway from the real R3 use, I feel like it's most appropriate, particularly where the approved development meets the requirements of the R19 zone, just to clean that up. Yeah, not a big deal, but
Dave, while we're here,
yeah.
if the intent is to continue the under power lines park, the public facilities, why not just extend this now? Just signal to developers that's what we intend to have happen there.
I think the public facility zone probably shouldn't get assigned to a property until the ownership changes and a public entity owns it, would be my answer for that. If, in fact, we reviewed a project earlier today in our development review committee meeting that is just a little bit south of where the public facility zone is intended to stop along that corridor now. We talked about the developer of the city acquiring that property and having it be part of this linear park. I think at the time of a zone change for development approval, that's when it would make the most sense to change the zoning of any of those properties through the corridor that would be part of that linear park.
Correct. Original.
Once again, a cleanup this time. We're going to talk about the other end of the city, just south of the river. This is the River Point development. This project expanded to include some properties on its western end here. Those were zoned rural residential. I don't recall all of the details right now. We can certainly research it if you'd like. But I believe that even with those properties being zoned rural residential, they still met their density thresholds and things like that for the rest of the development. So it wasn't imperative that the zoning be changed to R112, but right now we think it's most appropriate. And it's odd, I would even say now, to have what's outlined in black there, zone rural residential, when really it's part of a subdivision that's intended to be entirely zoned R112.
I believe it was tied to the delay of the filling for removing it from the wetland.
Is that what it was? We waited on the zoning.
Because we were anticipating completing that process and furnishing the documents to the city, and so we held off.
Makes sense.
So we had some reason to delay that part of things.
Makes sense.
Again, cleanup at this point is how I describe it. We're getting close. The city acquired the property just to the south of us. We're building a really expensive library on it. I think this is an appropriate time to have the zoning change to public facilities for that. I'll try to speed it up a little bit. We have built a couple of facilities to move wastewater effluent around. That's the next one we'll look at, way up on the north end of Spanish Fork. So the road on the northern boundary of what we're looking at here is the state road that leads to the 4th South interchange in Springville. And the facility that's been constructed here provides sewer service to anything basically that's north of the jail, we could say. Small site owned by the city, a very important city facilities located on the property. It's the kind of thing that typically we would zone public facilities. Similarly, the city has purchased, actually a while ago, the city purchased property that kind of straddles 200 East. When it comes to expensive facilities, this is the granddaddy of them all, a new wastewater treatment plant. It's being constructed there and currently zoned I-1, so proposed to be zoned public facilities. We've called it Triangle Park. I don't know what it's ultimately going to be named, but this is east of Maple Mountain High School. City's owned the property here for a few years. Part of it was acquired via donation. Part of it was purchased, same kind of situation. Zoned as was the surrounding residential development, R112. The park is being constructed now, so it's proposed that the zoning be changed to public facilities for that. And then lastly, really at the same time as when the lift station facility that I mentioned on the north end of the city was constructed over the course of the past few years, so was one on the south end of the city. That's this property, zoned rural residential. That's what it was zoned when the city acquired the property. Once again, an important public facility. So that is the last proposed change that we have relative to these map cleanups for the year. Been a few years since we did this, might be a few years before we do it again, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
One maybe item of homework, doesn't have to be done right now, but the Legacy Farms changed to R19 instead of R112. I'm just wondering if, because even the R112 around it actually is R19 per parcel size. I mean, by right, it would be R19. I'm wondering if that was part of some older development agreement that it was supposed to be R112, even though the lot sizes meet R19. And so I would just encourage you to maybe check to make sure that the city's compliant, and if it needs to be R112, I'm in favor of that, if that's what it needs to be per some prior development agreement, which kind of makes sense to me, why the other one might be R112. Might be true, maybe that's the case, maybe not.
We can do a little bit of research on that right now, if you'd like.
Sure.
Probably pretty quickly.
But I've looked at those parcel sizes enough in prior applications to know that for sure R19 fits, but it also fits to the north of there as well.
Yeah. The intent is not to change, legal status of anything,
Right.
and the like, but we can certainly look into that. I think also.
And even what I'm saying has very, very little consequences until some future long-term date in the future where this might be redeveloped, right?
And zoning maps, I mean, it is the law, so it's far too important to look at it from the perspective of just wanting it to be tidy and orderly.
Right.
But yet, to some degree, I think that does come into play in a situation like this where you do have a rational boundary between two zoning districts to the north and you have the road. So that was also part of the thought process that went into that proposal, but we can check on the history of that one.
Mike, can we go to slide 5? Just this, there is another trail here. I don't know if we want to make that also a public facility that's running between those houses. I think it's that one.
It's the intent, yeah.
And then it kind of continues, the trail does continue back behind these fierce, I think it's 4 houses.
Although, to the edge.
It dead ends.
Of the edge
Yeah.
development, right?
Yeah, it dead ends on that first development. But
It
then
even goes by all the way to Spanish Fork Parkway, that trail.
it will,
Does
but
it?
it doesn't yet.
There's some gaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the intent. I believe we can do that with this go-round. Instructing us to add that. We'll double check and maybe we can even do that now just to make sure that's something that the city does own. I'm almost certain we do. And that's an easy add. I appreciate that. Fits right in line with what we're talking about, trying to do.
Good catch.
Anything else for Dave before we have him sit down?
Exciting stuff, I know.
Okay.
Good housekeeping.
We're going to go into a public hearing, but before we have a few public hearings tonight, just so everyone is aware, the way that we like to run public hearings here in Planning Commission is we'll have you come up, 3-minute limit, and then any questions that you bring up, we'll address them at the end of public hearing, just so we can get them all, because there might be some redundancy through those. But with that, we will go into public hearing for these zone changes. Is anyone here to talk about zone changes? Come on up. And then just state your name.
Sorry, what else?
Just state your name and then, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever questions.
Any questions you have? Yep.
Oh, yeah. So I'm Tyler Vorhees. I believe it's a zone change because I have property that's R3. I was going to the R3 with the infill overlay. And so we had met on this previously. I don't know if you still need me to come up and talk about this or
Oh, you can come up.
is that
Yeah, it's in a couple items. Yep.
okay?
Perfect. No worries.
We'll open it back up at that time,
Yep.
for sure.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go out of public hearing. Any discussions on these?
Looks great
Okay.
to me.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on these.
I move the Planning Commission recommends approval of the zone changes as presented by Mr. Anderson.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Ernst,
I second.
second by Commissioner Mitchell. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, Ludlow Development Enhancement Overlay.
Is that the action?
Once again, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I'll just mention about the
See, it
last
doesn't say.
item. I've just done a quick check on that piece of property that's kind of on the south side of.
The
that
R19?
one part of, yeah, and I can at least report back later about the situation there. We can talk about maybe presenting that differently to the city council if you think that's worth additional conversation at least.
That's the only reason I brought it up, just so that you can check, and I just don't want the city to be, to not be compliant with some past agreement.
Appreciate that.
That's it.
Okay, this property has a unique history in that it's one of just a handful of properties in the city where a unique zoning tool has been used to allow for a use that for one reason or another otherwise wouldn't meet the city's zoning criteria for that property. In this case, with the original proposal, which was to go from a residential zone to a zone that also would allow for some non-residential uses, there were issues with the site being able to accommodate the city's parking requirement and a few different things, if I remember right. So going back to the original approval, this overlay was used so as to allow for a particular business to occupy the property with the idea that by way of the nature of that business, they could operate just fine without complying with the city's zoning requirements in a strict manner. Since that time, the tenants of the property have changed a couple of times. So this applicant last approached the city within the last couple of years about having the original tenant, which was, I think by all accounts, a very, very low impact. It was a very low intensity type of use of the property, just a couple of people there typically throughout the day, really no recognizable increase in traffic, no increased need in parking or that type of a thing. That was simply the situation with that. Another business, with the approval of the city council, occupied the site for some period of time. I believe the situation was a little bit different there, just in terms of the volume of activity that happened at the property. Nonetheless, the city's last approval of the property was very clear by way of if that tenant were to change, the applicant would go back through this process again. So here we are again. Just to share my thoughts, but I more than anything really want to let the applicant's correspondence speak for itself relative to the tenant that's proposed now to occupy the site, get a city business license and so forth. A couple of employees, and I believe as has been represented, maybe 5 other business visits to the property over the course of a week. Few types of businesses really would function that way, but as I understand it, the nature of this business probably is such that that really could be the case. I think it's an ideal candidate for the property. So we don't have concerns with that, but certainly want to make sure that we're following the appropriate process, hence it being on your agenda tonight. So.
Perfect. Is the applicant here this evening? Perfect. Would you like to speak to us at all? Perfect.
Fred Ludlow, and my wife and I own the property. We've owned it since about 2007. And we've had it we had it originally as a residential rental. And then I guess it was in 2018, we started the process of wanting to have it as more like a home office or just a low impact office space. Yeah, which we've had it, this would be the 3rd tenants. And they've been, of course, it kind of coincided with the pandemic and, the current applicants that want to rent it, it's a telehealth. They're medical professionals, and they do nearly everything they do is online throughout the United States. So it's they're currently in this city. So they'd have 3 employees there, 2 to 3 at any given time.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And we've just, the requirements that we were asked to do, we have done. We rebuilt the fence on the east side of the property line. And our neighbors to the north did not want a fence. So the city suggested we might put a fence there, but our neighbors to the north did not want a fence, so there's no fence line there.
Perfect.
Answering any questions anybody might have.
I have a question, Mr. Ludlow. Is the business itself advertised as exclusively telehealth, or will they be seeing patients in office as well?
That's where they're not exclusive. They get between 2 to 4 in-person visits a week.
And I'm seeing on the site plan, I see 2 here. I see one that shows 2 parking stalls plus 1 ADA parking stall for a total of 3 on the site. And then I see a second site plan that shows 1 parking stall plus 1 ADA stall.
Yeah.
Do you know which one you're going with?
It's
Here's-
If I have the slide.
Probably blind myself. This is a 2-car garage right here, and we've got one set up as a handicap and one regular.
Okay, will they park in the garage as well?
If they
If they,
want to,
if
yeah.
the employees want to or whatnot? Do you know how often the business needs on-street parking?
On very rare occasion, it would be when they get, sometimes a vendor or sometimes a client come in, that, around one a day or so.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we will go into public hearing for this for the Ludlow Development. Come on up.
Tom Swenson. We're the neighbors directly to the east of the proposed change. Our issue is parking. I mean, as long as what they say it's supposed to be, then we're good with it. But I mean, we've had issues, especially with the previous tenant, where we've had people block our driveway, and it's difficult to get out in that scenario. So, I mean, like I said, parking would be an issue with us, but as long as they follow what they say it's supposed to be, then we should be good with that, so.
Thank you.
If I may ask, you had issues, how frequently were those in, I know this is a new tenant moving into the building, but in the past, how frequently were you having parking issues?
The last tenant definitely had a lot more employees, and they had a lot more like in-office visits. So that, I mean, there was definitely a lot more people around with the last tenant. And the previous tenant before that, we didn't really have an issue with them either.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Brian Fay. I actually live directly to the north here, who didn't want the wall or the parking lot. I can't speak to Mr. Sorensen's concerns because he lives on 100 South there. I have never had any problem with any of the businesses. They're very low impact. We also live right across the street from the park here, and so there's people parked on the street all day long there. So to have somebody on the west side here on 100 East, across from the park, we don't even notice it. So proposing doing any sort of parking lot or wall for us has always been very undesirable because we don't even notice they're there, to be honest with you. Again, I can't speak to the south side because that's where the driveway is, but as long as he's saying what's going to happen is going to happen, it's pretty low impact business over there. So we'd love to keep it open and pretty as it is. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go out of public hearing.
If I can just add one
Yep.
quick thing.
Come up here to the mic real quick. Yeah.
It did come to our attention that after our most recent tenants moved out, it did come to our attention that maybe it was a little bit more traffic or they didn't park properly. So one of the things we just added was some cameras, because I'd never known when we came over. I live in Colorado, but we come over here to see family quite often. We never personally saw any issues, but we're not here all the time. So we've just added cameras so that we can monitor that to see if that's happening.
Perfect.
I have a question. Is there anything in your rental agreement with the tenants about parking
restrictions?
It's on their number of people that they can have there, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
I don't know if I went out of public hearing, but we'll go out of public hearing. Any discussions on this?
I have one comment, and that is that I was here when this was proposed in, was it 19 or 18? Anyway, there were a few concerns about the parking and stuff more than anything else. And then the second time that you came to us, the wall was discussed. And, you know, it sounds like that has worked out well because the neighborhood still looks like a neighborhood. That's a great old home that has been on that corner for a long, long time. And, you know, I think that you need to be complimented that it stays that way and it stays maintained. I notice that all the time. One thing that was talked about, and I don't think was ever a problem, was that because the park is on the other side of the street, there's some concern about, you know, the possibility of kids running around into the backyard and stuff like that. And I've never heard any complaints about that at all. And
From us?
no, not from you. You know, it was a concern that you might have people that would, or kids mostly, you know, that'd be playing hide and seek or something like that and go into a backyard. But I don't think that the kids know that that is a business. I think, you know, if they knew that there wasn't anybody there at night, they might do something like that. But I've never heard of any kind of trouble there at all. And so
You're shaking your head going,
I was gonna say, I work from home every day. I look out that window all day long. There's nobody out there.
Good.
The people stay in the park, and yeah, they think it's a house.
Yeah.
They don't know any better.
And so I guess my comment is that it has worked in the past two tenants. You know, you've had to come back and we have reviewed what has happened. And I think that it has been a good experience. And I am sorry if there were some problems with parking there, and I hope that we could resolve that through the contract and stuff like that. And it was good to hear that you're going to have the cameras there. So I'm in favor of continuing with the same kind of an agreement that they have now, especially that if tenants change, you have to come back for approval again.
And it sounds like Mr. Ludlow is willing to work with whatever parking concerns happen, reaching out and figuring out how to best deal with those. Any other comments, discussions?
I have a question for staff.
Go ahead.
What would it take to comply with the zone? I mean, what are the actual differences between the infill overlay zone designation and the underlying zone?
They have 2 off-street parking spaces today. They need to add some number of additional spaces.
They'd have to add more on-site parking spaces?
I say they have two off-street parking spaces now. They would need to add more off-street parking,
Okay,
which would just simply be a function of square footage.
right.
So we can run the math.
Are there any proposed improvements to this? Because I see a site plan, but it looks like there's nothing that's proposed as far as differences. I just want to understand it.
Anything changes at all.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I think that we talked about that at one time, at the very first, about having some parking behind the house. And nobody really liked the idea of you know, paving over paradise, so to speak.
Yeah, why turn that into a parking lot?
Yeah, that it's better as it is.
And I'm seeing the general plan wants this to be high-density residential, and the use that's there now is definitely more friendly to the existing neighbors. And also, I see a benefit to having less parking than the underlying RO in this particular situation because it encourages less visitors, and the tenant doesn't need as much parking. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
As long as there's not an impact on the other neighbors.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Sorensen's concern is valid and I think the incentive for the applicant is if we hear he has to recertify each time with the commission, and if there are continued complaints, that might be harder and harder to get.
Correct.
So,
Right.
Also, I'd say if, Mr. Sorensen, this would, of course, be frustrating, but if someone was blocking your driveway, I'm sure Mr. Ludlow wouldn't want that to happen, and nor would the business. It would be my hope. You'd probably get the fastest result just telling the business, hey, someone's blocking my driveway. And then if that doesn't work, for sure you would be within your right to call the police because they shouldn't be blocking your driveway.
No one should.
our typical zoning tools don't really give us a lot of an opportunity to very
Tailor it to a
precisely
business. Yeah.
address how much a particular use at a particular location impacts what happens in the immediate vicinity of that location. And this tool is intended to maybe bridge that gap a little bit, to give everybody a little bit more of an opportunity to be precise, so.
Thanks for
I can think of a number of developments in the city where that opportunity to readdress that would be very helpful.
Speaking from personal
Take
experience.
applications 5 days a week, so.
Any other comments? If not, we would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend the Ludlow Development Enhancement Overlay Zone change for approval based on the staff's findings and conditions.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on that? If not, is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next, item C, and if I say this wrong, I apologize. Vorhees Duplex Edition. Thanks.
We appreciate the applicant being here tonight. This has come before you previously. We appreciate the feedback that was given to the applicant at that time. What he's requesting is a zone change to apply the infill overlay zone so that the property can be utilized with additional dwelling units. He currently has a duplex on the front of the property. If we can go to the next slide. It's here at 117 North. You can see the existing duplex. Let's go to the next slide. So if you remember, a lot of the discussion that was held previously, I believe it was October at the Planning Commission meeting, related to improvements, not just for the rear duplex that's proposed, but improvements and enhancements to the existing duplex to kind of meet the intent of the infill overlay zone. Go to the next slide. So this is the applicant's renderings that were provided as far as enhancements to the existing duplex. And so, as you could tell from the previous picture, it's currently vinyl siding. The Planning Commission did direct the applicant to consider something more longer lasting, higher quality, things of that nature. And so what we've got is proposed gray brick wainscot, blue stucco, and some hardy board applied in a manner that would be similar to the rear duplex. Let's go to the next slide. You've seen this previously. This has not been updated since that last slide as far as the materials, but this is a great 3D rendering that shows the finished product.
So it's this layout with the exterior renderings from the previous page.
Yep. Let's go to the next slide. This is a new site plan, very similar to what you saw previously when the DRC did look at it. The fire marshal did have some comments and a request as far as the access to the rear. And so this does have a little wider driveway at the street to meet their 20-foot requirement. As previously discussed, you can see the landscaped areas, trees that would be added. The applicant's doing a uniform new vinyl fence around the property as was previously discussed with you. Let's go to the next slide. This is the landscape plan that was provided previously as well. Let's go to the next slide. So these are the elevations. I apologize, sometimes when these get converted to JPEGs, it makes them illegible, but you can see how similar it'll be to the duplex to the front. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Floor plan that you've seen before. Each unit will have a single-car garage with additional parking spaces to the front of it. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. I believe this is the last slide. Yep, let's go back up. Any questions for staff at this time?
The fence that's getting put in is 3 foot just past this point to the sidewalk?
Yeah, that's for clear view reasons.
Okay.
So as people pull in and out of the driveway, there's less conflict.
Is the existing structure's elevations, are they comparable to the proposed elevations of the new structure?
Very similar. I'd be happy to let the applicant kind of speak.
They're not, no.
No? Okay. I don't see it in our packet, so I was curious.
Brandon,
What's that?
there's currently 2 trees here. Are those being removed for the parking, I'm assuming?
I
And
believe the
then-
larger one's already removed, and the smaller one will be coming out.
And then 2 new added in the parking strip?
2 new and then 2 new in the back.
And walk me through the need for an infill overlay zone versus the underlying R3.
So the R3 by default, the only permitted use is a single-family dwelling on a 6,000 square foot lot. So where this is a larger, deep lot, it doesn't necessarily have the frontage to subdivide for additional dwelling units, but it does have the acreage to qualify through the infill for additional dwelling units.
Is the existing duplex legal non-conforming then? It does not comply with the underlying zone?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If there's no other questions, I'd be more than happy to turn the time over to the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can come on up.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Vorhees. I really don't have a whole lot more to add. Like you already went over, this is the older one, but the materials and things will be updated to the stucco and hardy board. I pretty much matched the kind of the style a little bit on the one on 99 North that was done, that had the infill overlay where they've got the duplex up front and the single family home in the back, just to match that a little better since it's the same neighborhood, same street and everything. So that was the idea behind that. And then again, like that wide, the driveway is going to be more wide towards that entrance too, so we can fit that 20-foot requirement for the fire truck to get access to get back to that rear unit. So those are the main changes since last time.
Any questions? No? Okay, we might have questions after the public hearing.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Okay, with that, we'll go into public hearing. Come on up.
Can I say something?
Yeah, we're going to public hearing.
So come up.
So come on up.
I'm
Yep,
sorry.
you can come on up.
This is your opportunity.
Yep,
Your time.
you're good.
Yep.
That's right.
State your name.
State your name,
and-
yeah.
I'm Matt Riggs. This is my wife, Melissa. I live just south of the proposed project here. Yep,
Right there.
101.
The old house.
We've lived there for almost 30 years, and we've had a threeplex south of us and the duplex north of us. And every time there's something built next to me, I have problems. I've had electrical wires pulled out of my home. My house almost caught on fire, and now I'm having flooding from the project south of me. My foundation is at risk. Every time it rains or you get a heavy snow,
It drains
I'm
down.
panning water. And now this,
They're
they're gonna
raise
build,
it.
what, another
again.
duplex? They're gonna have to put in clean fill, raise up the foundation area to match what he's got there now. Where's all that water gonna go now? Right into my yard. All right? So I'm concerned. And with the proposed parking you got there, that's just an accident waiting to happen. Don't you think? No?
We'll answer we'll go through all those things after we get through public hearing.
Is that all your comments? Because I have some questions for your comments.
Oh, go ahead.
So with the development to the south, they raised that site up higher than your
About 2.5
grade
feet.
and didn't retain any of it. So there's
Cleaning up the mess from a year and a half ago.
so there's stormwater, rainwater, melt,
Everything.
irrigation flows onto your property.
Yeah, every time they water their lawn.
And they told us 5 different times, oh, we'll fix it, we'll fix it,
Nah,
we'll fix it.
Nothing's fixed. I called the city and I get the heave-all.
Okay. And then what, you mentioned an electrical issue. Was that just something that happened during construction? They hit a power line
It
or?
was North of us first built, they had a dump that didn't lower.
Oh,
low enough
okay.
to put out the whole electrical
Gotcha.
wire.
And put a hole in our roof,
Gotcha.
so they had to fix that, but
So, you know, I
just, we don't know
I'm just-
how to
take care of that.
I'm just like, here we go again.
Right, gotcha.
Let me ask you one question about while you're there. Do you have drainage from the street down to your house now? You say that
Not from the street, no.
It's just.
It's from
the side.
the south project that was just recently built, maybe a year and a half ago.
So is it surface water that drains down to you, or does it sub down into
No, it
their
come up
yard and
mostly
then
off
come
the
up?
roof. What comes off the roof directly into my foundation.
Rain, whenever
So
it's-
so it comes across your yard and hits your basement wall?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
From the south.
From
Yeah.
From the south.
Not, it's not coming from the north?
No, not from the north,
because it's not
but
right directly
I'm
next
just
to our house
stating
on the
what
north.
previous building has happened
Sure.
to my home.
And
Now I'm having settling issues, I'm having foundation issues, and my house and property sits lower than everything else now.
'Cause
It used to be
they're
all
adding-
even
When was it built? This to
in
south
the
of you?
late 30s.
No, the one to the south of you, a
Oh, 2020.
couple years ago.
the one to the rear was built 2020, or the one to the
This
front?
one
Looks
here.
like they both
That-
got built.
The whole,
That
That
one,
whole,
that
They were
whole
that
both
thing.
whole
built-
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything just drains right into my home.
And how has the parking from the one to the south affected you? Because it looks like it's
There's
the
no
same.
issue on
No, we
parking.
haven't.
There hasn't been
He
any
was
issue.
talking about the,
Oh, if you go to the next slide, I was just concerned about they're wanting to park the cars in front of
the layout for the
Existing
current one
duplex.
is a concern.
yeah.
But the
but
one
it's-
to the south, they do that same thing.
No, they have their own
They just
driveway.
drive right in.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit different, but we're more concerned about the water.
They park right here. And now you want to have the cars parked right here.
And that's a fiveplex south of you, a 2 and a 3?
It's three.
Three and then 2 in the back, yeah?
And then
Yeah.
these guys
Two and a
have a
one?
driveway right here,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Where over here, it would be right there.
Right.
Thank
Is
you.
that also
No, I appreciate
infill?
those
south
comments.
of them?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
for bringing that up.
Any other public hearing on this? Comments, I should say. Seeing none, we'll go out of public hearing.
We have staff answer the question on the stormwater not being retained on
That
the
just
south
shouldn't-
property's lot.
Shouldn't happen, obviously.
That should definitely be retained on their lot and not impact another resident. How is that policed and enforced?
I mean, I think-
I've had it explained to me, it's trespassing over water from one property to another. So where the
course.
rainfall has to stay, and if it isn't, it's a trespassing civil suit.
Yep.
We've had that probably, I haven't had
So-
a call about this one personally, but that's typically how bond instructors to respond.
Apparently, there's been calls, yeah, the
So-
resident said there had been calls to the city and he didn't receive satisfaction from those calls. Have they been directing it? Who, do you know who's been?
Vaughn is saying you have to file a civil suit, Mike?
This
Seriously?
was a mess during construction, right, that project that was out.
I get it, but like,
Disaster that way, yeah.
I understand, but the legal system is a paid, I mean, it's
Well,
expensive to do these things. I understand that, but
If I went out and said, private property on there, do something to your private property, I don't have a city ordinance or a law, it's not my, I'm not legal counsel.
I mean, I see it
What was said-
I see it as a concern, because the
Hey,
water
yeah.
running off, we've increased a lot of concrete there, we'll be increasing a lot of concrete that'll be directly adjacent to the Riggs' property.
Yeah.
If it is not retained on the property, it'll just exacerbate their situation, so that needs to be something, that they should have some recourse within the city or legally against the property owner.
I want to agree with what you're saying. What I know is that the infill overlay is intended to allow for uses that otherwise couldn't be allowed on properties so long as they don't impact neighboring properties adversely. This is not the only project that's been through the infill overlay approval where we have this problem, where storm drain onto neighboring properties is a problem. So particularly in light of this conversation, I think we need to relook at the level maybe of detail that we're going into at this stage when a project's being reviewed, to be more particular about just simply making sure that there is some type of system in place, some level of thought that's given, whatever it takes to make sure that storm drain is not a problem.
With every site plan I've ever seen, the lot is sloped, or it's detailed where it's sloping so that it is retained on the lot. This would lead me to believe that this was not followed in this construction, and so that should be, you didn't follow your permit.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. What I do know is that simply with building code, you're required to make sure that there's a certain slope away from a structure, like at property lines and different things
Can't
like
have
that.
reverse grade.
I don't know what all comes into play. I think we need to get much more up to speed on what does need to happen relative to that before we approve more infill overlay projects. I think it's on the city to make sure that this stops happening. We do absolutely struggle. John, just maybe one other thought. I don't want to take a ton of time, but we need to figure out a way to deal with developers that aren't part of the solution as well. And I feel like the only way that we can do that is to change how we go through the approval process for infill overlay projects. So, Mr. Vorhees isn't necessarily the cause for the conversation.
He's not guilty
here,
of anything. Yeah.
But yet we certainly don't want to add to anything.
Well, we can't have the situation be created where you now have 3 lots draining onto one, or the two adjacent coming onto it.
Or any place else in the city for that matter, right?
Because if they build it the way they're supposed to.
Should be fine.
And the way the civil engineer designed the drainage, that will never be an issue. So I don't know if we can just assume everyone's a bad actor and make decisions that way. And then I'm just thinking, if this neighbor just put in some sort of drainage pipe that ran out to the street, it could solve a lot of problems really quickly.
Tried talking to him.
Several times.
He's like,
dang it.
We were out there panning.
We have video
And I took a video
how much
and
water comes in
he said,
on a heavy rain or heavy snow day or melt.
Is there a way that, someone from the city
super
can
empathetic
help
to that.
with
That sucks.
with the repercussions, direction on where to
We've
go?
been very, very ineffective so far.
Is there a
which
way
is
we
really,
can get effective?
really frustrating. I have some thoughts.
The city inspects to make sure it's built the way it's supposed to be built and drains the way it's supposed to drain, and as long as it does, then
Well, and
they
even
get their CO,
sometimes the way
right?
things are supposed to be built, they don't work, right? So going back.
There's a lot of water coming off that roof that maybe it wasn't designed.
Right. So for any number of reasons, we need to figure out a way to solve problems, I feel like.
The biggest problem we have here is impervious surfaces. On this lot, there's going to be more impervious surface than there is grass. So there's no way that this lot is going to hold that water. It's got to be removed from that lot onto the street or somewhere else. If you put in a LED system, it's still in the ground, and if they're having problems with that, that's going to be a problem. And I don't think that this commission or staff is prepared to make that kind of a decision. That would be something that an engineer would have to go in and do, like what we're talking about. It can be in the form of a pipe, it can be in the form of curbing around, the biggest problem is going to be the driveway. You're gonna more than double the size of the driveway, and you're gonna put the exact or close to the same amount of roof on this property. You can drain the roof completely over onto the driveway in some way, shape, or form, and then if you slope that in the right direction, it can come out onto the street. However, if that happens, then that could cause problems with the existing drainage on Second West. And so it takes someone with the credentials to know how to get rid of this rainwater. And, it's a good thing that we have a public hearing to understand this. And I think that if it is an issue, it needs to be resolved. That's why the question I had was, does your own driveway and does your own lot contribute to your problem in the first place? Because I'm a plumber by profession, and I've done a lot of remediation to water problems, and most of the time, it has nothing to do with the neighbor, it has to do with the water table that you're building in. The further west you go in Spanish Fork, the higher the water table. And the lower you are, that's why I ask about what the elevation of your basement is in comparison to the street. You may have problems that aren't ever going to be resolved. You may. But what I am saying is that without the proper engineering, you're not going to know, and the applicant's not going to know, and we can't answer that question. And so I think that you're really, your comment is right on spot, and that's why we have these public hearings, is to see if there are problems like this.
And my guess is probably experientially, it was not a problem until after it was built
Like I
next to.
stated before, I lived there almost 30 years, and I haven't had a flooding problem
Until,
the new
gotcha,
development.
gotcha.
During a drought.
And see, part of the issue could be that if we put all the water from the two, say from both of them, onto the street, will the street handle it, or does it come into your yard anyway? See, those are things that I can't say because I don't have, the vision that tells me what the slope of that is or anything else. And that's something for an engineer to do. And so the applicant is probably going to have to come up with the engineering detail on how he's going to take care of the stormwater.
Well, and that's very simple. Without increasing any cost to the applicant, that could be a waterway along the south side of his driveway. It's concrete, it's just a little concave waterway to take it out to the street. If that capacity is there, that way the concrete slopes right, catches it before it gets on the neighbor's property and it's gone.
Part of what's frustrating for me, I have a few frustrations right now, and that's on us as staff to make sure that things don't get to this point. Storm drain should be an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Should not
Yes.
be
Yeah.
complicated. It should not create a problem for a neighbor ever. And like I said, this is not the only one. So, we need to get it figured out.
That should be on the
Honestly,
list.
the city's options are pretty limited as far as.
Well, let me give a quick example. Give me 30 seconds. So if these two neighbors were to build next to each other, they get approved without this RV pad, let's say. They just have this over here. So when it rains, it drains south or to the bottom and over here, and they have land over here. So it just sits and holds the water. City walks away and they're happy in their house. I just randomly picked this, by the way. I don't know who lives here or anything. So then these guys add an RV pad. These guys haven't put in their front yard. So when it rains, this downspout and all this driveway now comes over into this window well and it floods the basement. They call the city and say, hey, my neighbor just flooded me out. You should come arrest them, or if we've heard it all. So
Take them away, James.
building permit wouldn't have said anything because, there was 15 feet between the property lines and maybe the builder did put a little berm or something. Maybe it just made it out to the street. But when people start living there and adding things to it, just like this duplex being added, there's a lot more impervious area. And drainage, let's be honest, is one of the last things considered. It's usually what colors are gonna be, what's the site, is it gonna be hardy board, is it board and batten, whatever. And so then it's not a big issue until it rains and then someone's in someone's basement and cleaning water. So this is one that was 2 years ago. This is an infill where they build a single family house back here. This is 2nd East 3rd, 315 North. So what they did is they put a box here and they connected it over to this box. Because they're actually lower than the street by a little bit. So they piped it out so it can bubble up, but they have gravel envelope underneath the concrete that connects these two boxes.
There you go.
And by an engineer's calculations, it can hold a 200-300 year type storm underground before it even spills out.
So they have underground retention on site.
Yes, it's two concrete boxes and gravel underneath it.
So they are retaining their stormwater on their site.
Yeah, so this is when they came to me up front.
That's cheap. That's a great idea.
Figure this out. So on a project like this, it doesn't add a lot of costs, but it would add a layer of security. The question then also, as John said, is the soils. Is groundwater too high? I don't know. And then you don't want to put this drainage field too close to the basement.
Well, just because there are basements there and they don't flood normally, it shouldn't be a problem that the groundwater is too high.
It could be both.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But there could be a clay layer just underneath you, and when more water, I mean, you just had urban forest behind you that, you know, I'm familiar with the area quite well, and it gets unattended and overgrown and gets to be, you know, a place of where anything goes back there. And so I've been in favor of seeing those places cleaned up and being used efficiently. And I think it's an efficient use, and I like the concept he has, but it can't impinge, you know, it can't impinge on the neighbor at all. And so I think, Mike, that's exactly right. It could be an easy situation, and I think that that's probably the only thing that is missing with this proposal. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, if they could alleviate their part. I mean, Mr. Vorhees can't be held to fixing the other neighbor's problem, but he can certainly take care of the one that we're talking about, you know, and making sure that all this area drains. I would imagine that the plan actually calls for the driveway to be sloped to the east. And, you know, that's going to take care of most of it that comes along there. And maybe all you need is a curb on the side, you know, that takes it that way.
Well, the current plan has a landscaping curb that will run down that property line.
That's exactly.
We're not seeing it, the fence is screening it, but there's a landscaping curb along that.
And it's that way on the property to the south though as well. So I mean, clearly there's a grading issue or something.
Well,
But the water's
Mr.
running
Riggs
to the north.
commented that there was a lot of fill brought in, and their site elevation actually
Yeah,
sits high.
stay on this one, because, so with this, they're over here, but then also needing to remember that there's a neighbor on this
Yeah.
side as well.
Yep.
On the side where there's not a lot of concrete, but they're high, and are they draining up over onto here? My other thing, I mean, this is only slightly, this is related, but we're not talking about this particular thing. Like, is there some kind of resource where a community member can call the city and say, I've got a problem, can you please help me know where to go, how to take care of my problem with my neighbors, or with, you know, with these kind of things? Is that our legal department?
Are you volunteering the city's legal department for pro bono hours? Because they need them.
We probably get, in the springtime when it's more prevalent of these issues, we get probably a couple calls a week. Very similar to one I said where that neighbor added a driveway and it's flooding them. And we have a guy that goes out and meets with them, talks to them, not legal advice. If it gets to that point, it's beyond us, but he'll give him some thoughts of what he's seen over time. And so that's been, it's not really that.
Well, it's more turning you to, here's your resources of what you can do, here's what we can do as a city, you know.
Which, Sean, honestly, and I'm just saying this to try to be as honest and direct as I can be, it's a civil issue.
Right.
Yeah, and the city can't
The
give legal
scenario
advice.
that Mike described, which is it's a great example. House gets built, somebody comes back and adds additional concrete, we don't require a building permit for somebody to add on to their driveway or to do flat work on their property. So maybe we go from not having a problem to having a problem. So the answer is there's really nothing that we can do, and there's no direction that we can give to where people can look, you know, for resources other than through some type of civil action if they wanted to go that route.
What Dave means, there's nothing we can do after the fact, but them
That's why we
coming is
certainly-
actually
This-
awesome because
Yes.
it makes it, our engineers will be ultra aware of this issue in this area when they review the plans.
Right.
And that's what we can do.
Which is distinct even from like the scenario that Mike used, I think is a great example. But that's a single family home that was built by right on a lot. And that's a different situation than we have here.
Right.
Where this review legally and otherwise allows for much greater scrutiny, a greater level of detail in terms of what is required and what gets reviewed. So
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, I guess, kind of
Yeah, I know, I
collectively as a
need to
commission.
yeah, I need to clarify what I was
Is
saying.
that we're not comfortable in passing this forward until we know a little bit more about the water remediation.
False from my perspective.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay.
So my comment would be, I don't think Mr. Voorhees should be punished for the actions of the neighbor to the south. I would like to see maybe a condition with the proposal that there be
Heightened scrutiny for drainage?
heightened scrutiny, some engineering, or some mechanism, not just, we're gonna have this procedure where we clear the walks, a gutter, a foundation drain, whatever needs to be put on the property line to handle stormwater coming off of that. But if a developer and a builder are good actors, you won't have that problem.
Right.
It's when somebody gets, they don't want to haul off the dirt, so they just are going to burn it on the site.
Right.
And they're careless with their grades, that you have this issue.
Okay.
And if a developer is going to develop this habit, then any projects they do should be heavily scrutinized.
So more of a condition is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And I'll add
Would that
to,
work with staff to have that condition
well,
included?
they don't have to agree.
I wouldn't say the condition was met until Mike or somebody from his office said it was.
Great.
So I
I
don't necessarily
agree.
want to speak for him, but again, storm drain's not a challenge, in my view. It can certainly, I think it can conceivably add to some expense. That scenario that Mike used where we looked at the
Minor.
historic flag lot where they were installing inlet boxes and different things like that, that's not necessarily cheap. But
They sat lower than the road already.
exactly,
They didn't
so you have
it.
some of those things. So, and I say that every situation's probably gonna have some nuance like that needs to be accounted for. But, yes, comfortable with the condition for sure.
Joseph,
As
you
long
wanted to
as
add
it's resolved.
something?
Yeah, I wanted to,
Has to, yeah.
for a second, add to Todd. I agree with what Todd said, and I want to add that maybe we don't lose sight of the forest, for the trees,
Yeah.
in the sense that the infill overlay zone for this community, in this instance where I think it does make sense. They don't always make sense, but I absolutely appreciate infill overlay zone applications because it's an opportunity to reinvest in a neighborhood that may not otherwise see it. And that tends to help everyone, even the neighbors that aren't participating or aren't the ones improving their lot. It tends to help the neighborhood.
Right.
So the infill overlay zone, I'm a big fan of. Keep those applications coming. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it does. But overall, it's a good thing.
Perfect. Does anybody have any
I think it'll be a
concerns
good
with
thing.
that
If they do it
condition?
right, it's a good thing for you.
Michelle had a comment, I think.
Oh, I just wanted to commend Mr. Vorhees for the improvements of the exterior based on our recommendations in October. I think he did a really great job.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really good.
Here's my question. So with an infill overlay like this, do owners live in part of this? Is it turned into a whole bunch of rentals? So it's I think that this is great too. It's creating an affordable housing and an income for an owner. And you're effectively making this part of the neighborhood, a whole lot of rentals, and that can be really good. You can get great renters. You can have really good neighbors. It can be inconsistent, but we very much have to say this is turning this into a rental property from a owner-occupied property. And I'm not, anyway.
Not always, but it can.
Right.
But yeah.
But quite often. Anyway, I'm just saying that right out front. I'm not labeling it one way or another.
Yeah,
Which is why
Quite
they want to
often
be
we do it
really
with
aware of
rental
parking and make sure there's enough. And
Yeah.
that's the next analysis, which I think they did.
You've seen a mixture of proposals over the years. Some, from the beginning, are proposed to be subdivided so that individual parts, individual units or homes that are part of an infill overlay project could be individually owned and occupied by the owners. You've also seen quite a bit of this type of proposal, which is one lot. So conceivably, the owner of the lot could live in one of the units, but going into this, we would expect that the majority of them are going to be rented.
Right.
And that it would be that way forever.
And this is different than an ADU.
Yeah.
And this is not that. Yeah, it could still be as part of an infill overlay. That's not how this is being proposed.
Nope. I would be comfortable with that condition if everyone.
Yeah, I think the applicant wanted.
Oh, you want to say something? Sorry.
Come on up,
Sorry.
please.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so, again, I definitely don't want to add to the water issue, and so I'm happy to add whatever, stipulation, thing like that, to make sure we don't have that water coming into it. And the power line issue that he mentioned, it was interesting, because that power line was only like 9 or 10 feet above my driveway. And so I actually contacted, I can't remember who, but the power department, and they ended up coming to move that line because it was legally too low for the, for the driveway, for that clearance. And so now it's on a pole, I think it's about like 20 feet high. So and after I heard that it had been pulled out, I didn't want that issue to happen again when we had our, equipment coming back and forth. And so that was one of my main concerns before even moving forward with any other parts, to make sure that part was cleared out. And with the parking being in front, so you can see that tree right there, that's the one that's gonna be taken out. And to have the parking spaces there, one, I need the extra parking spaces, but two, I've got to keep that driveway clear for the fire truck for those particular reasons, for, just make sure that we can take care of any issues and not have to get anybody out of the way and things that way too. I haven't heard any issues from the neighbors just to the north of me. It's interesting because that fence right there, right underneath it, is actually an old irrigation ditch. And so I wonder that may just be catching all of it already and moving a lot of it. And so we're probably gonna have to move that fence, when we do the vinyl fence, just off of that a little bit, but it should still help with that water issue there. And I do plan on living in the unit when I get finished with it, if that helps any concern that way. I'm currently just living with my parents and renting the other 2 units until I can get this one moved forward. So I think those are the main issues that I wanted to talk about. But
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with a motion with that condition. If anybody wants to make that.
Joseph, it's his turn.
Michelle?
I move the Planning Commission recommends approval of the Vorhees Duplex addition infill overlay zone with the additional condition that heightened scrutiny by our city's engineering department be given to drainage and ensuring it's adequate drainage in the design, and also adopt any other staff findings and conditions.
Okay. Any discussions on that motion? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right.
Glad you came.
Can I just say one more thing
Otherwise
to
we wouldn't have
clarify
known.
my thought? Just
Sure.
about, back to here. I know that that's, if there's a problem between neighbors, it's not necessarily a problem. They didn't live up to what they did for their development, but to
Or they
me.
did, and it wasn't enough.
Oh, exactly. So my concern, or my thought is that if a citizen in our city calls, I've written my notes here, they get a standard educational answer, and when they hang up, they know, they either they understand their resources, like they know a website to go to, or they know a phone number to call, or they know specific, like, this is what you do step by step. I mean, there's some people that know how to do that, others that don't. You know what I mean? It seems like there ought to be some kind of citizen support. City doesn't have to take, it's not city's responsibility, but do you know what I mean? Well, there ought to be.
There are dozens, if not hundreds, of different issues that we communicate with our residents about on a
So you do this already?
or in a lot of different ways, yes. What I don't want to do in this specific instance is give anybody the idea that there's a lot that the city can do when there's a drainage issue between 2 private property owners.
Also,
Where there is something that the city can do, I think, and we've gotten better over the years, but this is something that I think municipalities tend to struggle with in terms of making sure that we are communicating the right way all of the time with our residents, giving them information in formats that's easy for them to understand and to use. And it's not just this issue, is particularly what I wanted to say. It's lots and lots of different things, a lot of things that we hear, over and over and over again, so we get better at communicating on those issues, I think. Does that help at all?
Well, I guess, so here's the thing is, if I call the city and they say, well, I'm sorry, there's not anything we can do as a city, this is a civil issue, then I hang up and I'm like, civil issue? I have no idea what that means as a civil issue. Now what do I do? Like, what's my next step? That's what I'm talking about.
And certainly when we get to a certain point, we stop giving advice truly. So we don't.
You can't.
Play attorney,
Yeah. So Sean,
play
they can't-
qualified.
If you're getting legal
City
counsel over
can't
here.
To be
Legal advice, because it's the unauthorized practice.
Come
of
up here to
law.
the microphone,
Right.
They're not licensed.
because I think this is,
A lot of issues.
Anyway, I'm sorry,
A lot of
I've
issues
gotten
aren't
this
that way
off.
at all, though. It's not a
for
legal
sure.
issue, and we can do a deep dive and can help, but sometimes.
Maybe this will help out a little. I deal with these phone calls all the time. I deal with criminal matters and civil matters now, so I get complaints from the citizens about similar issues. The answer that we give in our department, we say, this is a civil matter, you might need to hire an attorney. That's all we say. We have no other direction or authority to give legal advice over civil matters.
Okay, but I guess the thing I like to hear is, this is a civil issue, you might want to hire an attorney. I'm like, then I hang up and I'm like, okay, I guess I need to hire an attorney. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
For something, you know
That's
what I mean?
all we could say.
Yeah. Thank you.
We listen to them. Maybe we ask a follow-up question, and if that's a civil matter, we say, yes, this is a civil matter, you might need to hire an attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Because we are not supposed to give legal advice to
Right,
civil matters.
right, okay, thank you.
And if I get a criminal issue matter, I say, again, as a prosecutor, in my position as a prosecutor, I tell them, well, you need to make a report with the police department.
Right,
And if there is a report initiated and proposed with charges, that's when it comes to me to prosecute. Because I
Perfect.
cannot start my own case.
right. And I like the thing that I like, and that actually answered my whole question is, you gave them the next step, instead of saying civil issue.
Not my
You said
business.
that you might, yeah, your next step is to.
perfect.
You might want to see an attorney.
Right.
She didn't say your next step is to do that. She said you might want to.
Right, but
That
still-
verbiage is important.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
No legal
Fine,
counsel.
Mr.
I
Attorney.
want jobs that has my back.
Right.
That is
Attorneys,
a very
you know?
good thing to say.
But still, I felt like, I felt like I had some tools.
Now I know what to do.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I caused this to go.
Thank you.
So,
All right, moving along. Title 15 amendments, we have two of them. Title 15 Commercial Downtown Amendment first.
Event centers, that'd be things like reception centers, banquet halls. We've provided the definition with the staff report. Currently, they are not allowed in the commercial downtown zone, which covers about 3 blocks of each side of Main Street, give or take a little bit, from approximately First North up to Fourth North. There is a group, I hope, the prospective operators are here tonight, great, good to see you guys. They can answer a lot more questions than I would be able to, but they've approached the city about a particular property downtown. And what we're talking about here wouldn't just be applicable to that property, but to any properties that are in this particular zoning district. So I'll speak to it from that perspective. Again, currently not an allowed use in the commercial downtown zone. It's that area that has that brown color to it. From my perspective, given the really quite a bit of effort that has been put into trying to make this particular part of the community more viable for commerce and more lively and more active and different things like that, I think that adding these types of uses to that part of the community can be a very, very good thing. It depends largely, I think, on how they operate, which again, back to maybe some of the fundamental issues that we have with zoning being the best tool, but certainly as a starting point, for somebody to be able to have an event center, our ordinance have to be changed. So with that being said, and with the idea, at least as far as I am concerned, that potentially this be a really healthy and helpful thing for downtown. I'll add to that, getting people downtown on weekends, evenings, different times when right now we really lack the kind of activity that makes these types of environments typically more vibrant and successful from an economic perspective. We are recommending that event centers be allowed in the commercial downtown zone, provided that one condition is met. Provided that they provide at least one off-street parking space for every 300 square feet of floor space, which for this particular use is not a high standard.
That's not very much.
That's my question.
That's my
You
concern.
hit on my question.
Here's the but, and for me, this is a really big deal. We do not, for uses in the commercial downtown zone, generally require any off-street parking. So there's that to consider. As is often the case,
What's the size of a typical event center, square footage?
I have no idea what the typical.
What's the one over here by the Wendy's C-store?
River Bridge.
River Bridge.
Check that.
River Bridge.
We could check that.
I'm just curious.
I have noticed occasionally they have some parking issues there.
Oh, my goodness.
There they do?
Occasionally.
This week.
And they have nowhere to go on the overflow, really.
Oh, they were, they,
Field maybe
yeah.
next to them.
Well, they were just all up and down the main highway.
Oh,
It
no.
was,
That's
it
scary.
was scary.
That's dangerous.
I was driving, yeah,
Especially in the snow.
totally.
So, let me be clear, I get it. I get that parking is a concern. Parking is a concern for business operators downtown. Nonetheless, at different times of the day.
Actually, it looks like a lot of parking.
And on different days of the week, it would be great to have a parking problem downtown.
How many square feet is the building that we're talking about?
Let's say 5,400 square feet, give or take.
Can you speculate for me why it was excluded from the zone when the zone was created and designated for this area? Why was event center excluded in the first place?
18 parking.
Is it, I feel like the most likely reason would be just they didn't think about it. That'd probably be the most likely, but I'm wondering if you have some more insight on that.
I don't, and for example, I mean, there's a theater across the street from this. They have events, and I think they have seating for maybe up to 200 people, maybe a little bit more than that.
All those are right there.
They don't have off-street parking for that, and that use has existed for a long time. The owners of that property have reinvested in it recently to a large extent, and I've never had a complaint because of people that visit the Angelus Theater, anything that's going on there, concert or whatever, and there not being enough parking. It's one of those environments where maybe people have to park a block away or 2 blocks away.
You've never heard a
Fine.
complaint about it?
Not about the Angelus Theater.
Okay.
No.
I should call you more often when I go down there and I can't find a parking spot by where I'm going. Dave,
Okay.
I want park.
And I'll say, hey,
Don't they?
keep looking.
Dave, it's snowing out here and I'm trying to find a spot in front of me right here.
They have some parking behind that building, don't they?
Yeah.
So, and that's particularly,
For the river.
not trying to hide anything,
5,500?
but this is a standard, incidentally,
Way
that
more
these
parking
folks
than
can
one per
meet
300 then.
with the site that they're looking at. So,
Which 160 is what, Reams?
Yeah.
Goodfellow?
It's where
Okay.
Reams,
Okay.
yeah, Reams,
What's that?
7,600 square feet.
zero bounds on that.
Oh, yeah. On a good day. Soaking wet.
But that is the long and short of what's being proposed. We talked about just making an outright permitted use, and felt that because of the likely demand for parking, that it was appropriate to have some condition related to parking, hence what's before you.
Can we go to that, Mike, can you pull up this location?
On this map or this?
I don't care, I just want to see the
Probably that
parking, I want to see
map that
Zion's
The other
parking,
map.
I want to see their parking.
It's there.
That one's way better.
So event center's typically going to be evening and night uses. And we have the
Saturday.
Zion's parking lot that's sitting back there, there's probably
But it's
empty
permitted.
all night long.
Where is it? Which one is it?
The Reams
This is the
building.
building. Yeah.
Are any of those gated off? Because some of those have fences.
There's one right here.
Right there, yeah. The rest of those are up to 200,
this
those
is
are all
where we're
open.
talking
Isn't this all
about?
signed that
And so
says
they've
Zion's
got
parking
these-
only?
Is that the first, what's
Maybe.
The horse it is.
Right there. See right there.
Oh.
Do the applicants want to come up and talk?
That horse, it's got me in so much trouble.
I'm James Yates. Excuse me. I'm James Yates. I'm not the applicant. I'm representing the applicant. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Colliers, helping the owner and the applicant put this transaction together. And I'm meeting Peyton for the first time. She is the actual applicants were not able to make it. They can be here next week for the city council meeting, but she works for them, and so we wanted her here as well to be able to better answer the questions regarding the specifics of the business. Why we think this makes sense. Dave brought up a couple of these points, and I appreciate that. And there's other similar businesses in this area that have a high occupancy load that are an allowed use. And so the exclusion of this sort of a use doesn't make sense in a downtown centric type area where a lot of these buildings don't have any off-street parking. I work with Del Ellsworth and Tim Shamto and done a handful of projects where these people have gone in and made nice improvements to the downtown area. And these are the types of leases that make that happen. This group will be spending $300,000 to $400,000 on cleaning up that building, renovations, making it a nice destination for people in the community. And the barber shop next door has parking, and they're totally on board, and they love what's going on. Dale Ellsworth is on the other side. He's already spent a bunch of money on his buildings downtown. Also helped out with Brent Wall when he bought the post office and turned that into a chiropractic center. So there's a lot of these types of businesses that would like to be downtown, and parking will always be an issue. And so, which is why a lot of communities like you've done have created a zone where there is no parking requirement. So the additional condition that is being proposed, I would disagree with, because it's not imposed on other businesses that have the same sort of occupancy load. And so I think that an event center ought to be treated the same as, say, a theater. It doesn't make sense that there would be a distinction there. And then if you have any questions about the
Just a quick question before we turn it over. Do you, because with that building, you would need 18 parking spots. Do you guys currently have that?
Yes.
20? Okay.
Yes, there is, and then there is, like was mentioned, there's many other, available stalls that are not going to be used, including, the on-street parking. I mean, we should be able to meet that requirement. Although I don't think it should be imposed.
Okay, thank you.
I'm wondering if there's a way to relook at that area and restripe it so that there could be more efficient parking in that area.
You'd have to talk to the declarant.
The owner has plans to do that. He's going to go in and crack seal and slurry seal the lot and restripe it to increase. He thinks he can get another 3 or 4 stalls once he's reconfigured that.
Peyton, how long has the applicant been in the event center business, and how many other facilities do they have?
So they opened their first one in February of 2020, so right when the pandemic
Where?
was happening. Daybreak, so right on Soda Row, if you're familiar with the area. And they were actually profitable during their first year, even with being shut down for a month or two. And then we opened our second location in June of 2021. It's Crescent Hall. It's in Sandy. It's right off of State Street. It's the Old Valley High School, if you're familiar with that area.
Next to the Shake Shack.
Yes.
You know it's a beautiful, it's a gorgeous facility up in Sandy. So this would be the third.
Thank you.
What will be the occupancy of this building? What are you trying to, like, what occupancy, in that square footage, 5,400, I think is what I heard.
Yeah, and it won't all be used as the event center. I think they're still working on design plans to see how much of that first floor will be utilized. They need, some other areas in there as well. But yeah, assume that it's the majority of that first floor will be used for the event center.
Do you have a target of event types that you're looking for? Is it just open for any groups?
So all our other venues, we are open to any type of event, but we mostly do weddings. I would say 90 to 95% of our events are weddings.
Okay.
So
weekends, evenings?
Yes, weekends.
Weekends, evenings.
Talk a little bit about, you probably know more than I do, about how they have, allow, cities or whatever to utilize, nonprofits, I should say. Go ahead.
I know the Azalea has worked with local government departments to have some nonprofit events in there. We have had nonprofit events at our Crescent Hall location. We did a fundraising dinner for Utah Valley refugees in our Crescent Hall location, and so we work really well with our property management companies there as well. So they oftentimes actually hold their Christmas parties at our event centers. So we do have a really good relationship with our property managers at both locations. And we've actually seen some really good, it's actually been beneficial for the businesses in the area as well. Shake Shack loves when we have events because they do more sales. So.
What percentage of your events will be daytime events opposed to nighttime?
We don't have very many daytime. I would say maybe 1 to 2 a week. I mean, that's just an average, but daytimes aren't as popular. And if there is a daytime event, it's typically a lot lower of amount of people coming to it. And so if the daytime does happen, it's typically on a Saturday daytime, but we do have some weekdays, but it's not as often as an evening.
Peyton, how do you feel about the parking situation at this location for your business?
I think it would work well. A lot of times when people are coming to events, it's not just one person, so not every single person is coming in their own vehicle. It's typically families or couples coming together, so not everyone's driving separately. And so I think it was, when we were first looking at it, we were like, would it work? And after looking at the parking that we use at our Crescent Hall location and at the Azalea, we do think that it would work. And we would also let our clients know which spots are designated for us so that we aren't interfering on any other businesses' parking. We would make sure that they're very aware of which parking are ours and that they can use.
I'm also thinking the time of day that you're going to be the most busy is pretty potentially good for this area compared to the time of day that the other retail neighbors you have they're not as busy. Especially later at night when your clients are exiting, that parking lot will probably be empty other than your people.
Yeah, we have other parts of the city just a couple of blocks north that complement each other well too, like restaurants that a lot of people will come in more in the evening.
And a lot of our clients do stop at Shake Shack on their way out, or at Crescent Hall we have a couple restaurants right near us, and they always kind of stop at those other restaurants and to the other businesses in the area, which has been fantastic for them as well.
Are the tenant improvements fairly substantial here in your business for this location?
The improvements that they're going
That you're
to
going to
do.
make, yeah, for this event
I
center?
am very excited.
Is there a facelift?
Yes. And the owners are so good. I mean,
They're gonna spend.
Yeah, but they're going to need a facelift. I want your business to be wildly successful, and I think Spanish Fork is going to fill that thing up,
we're
just so you
very
know.
excited about Spanish Fork. If you would have seen our Crescent Hall location before we gave it a facelift, you would have been like, you're gonna make this a venue, but the owners have just an eye for this kind of stuff, and they do a fantastic job. I mean, Crescent Hall, when I first saw it completely done, I was like almost brought to tears because of how beautiful it was versus when I first saw it.
Are you sad to lose the horse off of the roof?
I mean, if you want us to, if it's a stipulation, if we have to keep it, that's a stipulation.
Yes, but if you'd have.
out there.
Perfect.
It'd be fun to find a way to incorporate.
One last thing. I mean, I live here locally. I have a house in Spanish. I live in Mapleton now, but I'm South Utah County resident, and I've seen all the business just go away. And talking to work with many of the local business owners, and it would be really nice to help build up Main Street and turn Main Street back into a vibrant business district, the traffic you're gonna see increasing is not gonna be the traffic that's just driving through to Woodland Hills. I mean, this is gonna be traffic that's coming to Spanish Fork for business purposes. And so hopefully, I mean, we're hopeful that this will be approved so we can move forward.
I'm hoping it'll cause other improvements.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions before a public hearing?
No, but you know where I am based on my comments, so go ahead.
We know.
It's currently where I'm at.
All right, we will go into public hearing. So anybody here to talk to this? Come on up.
Neighbor.
Yep, I live 2 blocks north from here, so just perspective-wise,
What is 2 blocks?
Go ahead and state your name, Jackie.
Jackie Larson.
Hi, Jackie. On Main Street?
Yeah, so right behind the fire department.
Okay, gotcha.
So 350 north, so down, that's fine.
Okay.
So when we get a lot of events at the corner of the Veterans Building, that entire parking lot will fill up. Sometimes it will come into ours too. So I think perspective-wise, knowing how much they want to go, what they have there actually is adequate for there. That's my concern for down there, because I might be one of the few people here that, and I'm just gonna profile you, but has actually frequented Reams before.
How do you know?
That's what I said, I'm sorry. I should not judge you.
You're right. Just so you know, you're right.
I'm just gonna assume here. I mean, parking when you go in there just to go shopping, it's enough.
Before you step down, since this improvement has happened here, does it still fill up and come down there?
No, I just feel bad for you guys trying to cross the street.
Back to the other one. I want to see, I want to kind
Is
of
that
get
you?
the parking.
It used to be.
Yeah, I just feel bad, like, somebody's gonna get one. Okay.
Yeah, well, you just did it now, so you're back
My
here.
neighbor kid actually did get hit by a
Right.
scooter,
Right.
right at 4th North, and
Right.
Is he okay?
surprisingly, yes.
Oh, good.
He got carried from one end to the other.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when there's events at the Veteran Center,
It's
'cause
filling
that's
up.
an event center, right? That's the same kind of thing.
It's a
That's a
similar
big old
amount.
parking lot. It fills up. Is
This
it,
one versus the
Depending
one
on the
to the
size
north.
of it, it can overflow, like, we'll have parking on our street.
and has that been a nuisance to you guys, or it's just kind of like, this is what it's like to live downtown? You know, Fiesta
There's been a
days.
few times, like, I mean, Fiesta days, we kind of know it's coming.
Yeah.
Some, like, you'll have quinceañeras that are gonna be in the corner when, like, the music will get really loud. I can be on the other end of my house and I can hear it. So there's been only a couple times it's been a bit of a problem, but overall, like, it's once a year, maybe twice a year that we can actually hear it.
And that's a lot more parking than what is available
Ton of
at what's
parking.
being proposed.
Well, actually, so I had Michael go down. So go down. They actually still have the corner section of the proposed area. That's all parking. They might have more parking,
This,
but it's
this
not.
does not count, Joe.
This is
Why
Zion.
not?
It says Zion's Bank
That's
only.
This is Zion's.
Oh gosh,
It's all marked.
There's only-
you know it.
And I mean, that's how they're gonna get in and out of there anyways.
Yeah, we can't count
Parking
that.
is gonna go through Zion's.
I can't in my head, but I hope you know.
And then where
And it's
your mouth is
fenced.
right now, there is, I don't know if that was covered, but there is a wall there.
There's
Yeah.
the wall.
So they would just have that little,
That's where Tabitha's Way is, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, that's not that far to walk because
Nope.
some of the centers that we have now, including Spanish Fork's own Oaks, if you park across the road at the golf course and down by the river, it's probably a block or more.
Yep.
So, you know, even if you park down here, I'm not sure what this is in the old grocery store, but there's some parking there. You can see those cars. In other words, there's other places that could fill in, but it's not designated for this business.
but I think versus if you look across at the theater, you have all that parking behind there, like on Stone Drug. Whereas
Goes
over
all the way
here,
through.
if you try to go to Mirror Trade, that's not Mirror Trade anymore. But or Food Jacks, it's, you're circling the lot trying to like hurry up and get in one and then, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that
Thanks, Jeff.
perspective.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go out of public hearing.
I'm ready. I can make a motion if you
I
want.
don't think we're ready for a motion yet.
Oh, you're not? I'm ready.
You can make a motion if you would like.
Well, okay, so what do you guys think about that? I
Well,
mean, I
so
think it's-
having ran a business, Jackie kind of alluded to it, it's just outside of this district. And we were, I guess, I don't know how to speak because I don't work there anymore. Having a lot of clientele, right? And it's not a huge building, but parking issues downtown are a real thing. And not that this event center is, like, I think an event center downtown is awesome, but we're not talking necessarily about this event center wholly. We're talking about the change in Title 15. Right. So it could be a different location with not the same type of parking problems, or even maybe better parking or worse parking. So that concerns me a little bit, because we might be creating a problem somewhere else at some other point. But I do think that the parking issue of this location is problematic. That's my concern. Just because there isn't it was 20, is that what you said? Parking spots that were gonna be required?
18.
It'd be 18 that'd be required.
Well, we said 18 and you said 20.
20 plus.
Okay.
He said there's 20 plus there now, right?
And at that time of night, what does Main Street look like? I mean, I don't know. Parking on Main Street at that time of night for evening? I mean, I imagine it's plentiful.
After 6 o'clock, it's pretty empty.
It's pretty dead.
I think it's available.
Yeah, parking on Main Street is definitely going to be more available.
I think the Angelus Theater is a good barometer of what will happen here. There is all those spaces in the back, but in the middle of the block there, that helps alleviate the parking on the west side. The east side is more tricky. However, well, parking is going to go where it will after businesses are closed, and is not a problem if you don't need those for your customers.
Right.
All the businesses that I know of, they complain on Main Street that the 2 or 3 spaces in front of their stores are being taken, and people are parking there all day, and they're never open in front of their places. Like, you can't find a place in front of Mi Ranchitos ever. You're down parking close to Zion's. So I don't know that this creates any more of a problem than what we have on Main Street now. Although it's going to add to it, there's no doubt about it, because you're going to have some events that will be in the middle of the day when there is the maximum amount of parking there, especially Saturday. If you have daytime events, it's likely they're going to be at lunchtime. And so you've got 2 or 3 places that could affect some of that parking, but parking is the only issue that I see here. I like the idea of the renovation of downtown, and I think something new down there is very important to the area.
Well, and I think, if I think about going, I know Spanish Fork is not a big city, but if I think about the cities that I have gone to that have vibrant downtown areas, parking's an issue everywhere, but you're gonna go there because there's cool stuff there to go. There's an awesome restaurant, there's an event you wanna go to, and what's nice about Spanish Fork is there is a lot of on-street parking available, and you can walk a couple of blocks as needed, and
for sure.
And maybe that's a good thing. You want to walk and you want to see the other businesses and look in the windows and patronize. We would love a nice walking district.
And Spanish Fork City owns quite a bit of parking behind downtown. Do you want to point that out, Mike or Dave, somebody, just kind of in that area? Because I think that's important as well.
On the block on the south, we've purchased some parking next to MVP Sports. The city's developed parking just across the street to the north from from Zion's. It's finished off a parking lot there, Mike. To that parking around the fire station on that block. The city maintains the on-street parking throughout. We're talking about hundreds of parking spaces downtown. There's quite a bit of parking available in those different respects.
What about right here? Isn't this Spanish Fork too?
That is not.
Or is that Tabitha's Way?
And I hesitate a little bit to say this, but with respect to this particular property and kind of the jumbled up parking area that exists behind the buildings that front onto this block of Main Street on the east side. This goes back a few years now, 3 or 4, but at one point in time, we had a proposal put together that showed how all of that parking could be reconfigured. If, for example, fences came down and that type of a thing, we could increase the number of parking spaces by maybe 30%.
That was my wonder.
Is what it was. And incidentally, we got almost every property owner to sign on, but it was the previous property owner of the property that's kind of
Being
being
proposed?
proposed here that was the last holdout. So that died, and at that point in time, the city council was committed to play a part in helping to make some improvements. That would have been a more affordable route than what we ended up doing, which was purchase some of the properties that I just described. I don't know if that still is something the council would entertain.
That would be interesting.
But you can see how inefficiently that space is being
Right.
used.
Yeah.
And frankly, if you go there, it's not very inviting. So doing some things like maybe providing some lighting, clearly identifying paths for people to, walk through, that type of a thing. We felt really could be a significant enhancement downtown. So I wanted to mention that really quickly, and just maybe one other thing, and I am feeling more like an advocate for this than I want to typically. And again, it's because, I have to go back a few years, but the city really has invested a lot of time and energy into trying to figure out how to really make our downtown succeed. Some of that was the result of concerns about commerce moving more north to Canyon Creek and the like, and even with all of the development that's happened, we really do have a very healthy downtown. I think the vacancy rate's really low. So we have a number of businesses that thrive. Still, looking for ways to make it better. We did not do a property by property analysis for this, but I don't believe there are very many other properties downtown that could meet the condition that's proposed. Which is kind of how we as staff got collectively us comfortable recommending this change to where this particular property it would work for, but it was one way maybe to provide some kind of filter. So for example, the Angelus Theater property, they have 3.5 parking spaces that literally are part of that parcel.
Which one is it? Is that 175?
Across the street.
I want to say it's 169.
Dave,
Right here?
It's right here.
Sorry, 159 north, I think, is that. Oh, so I'm missing, they might have 6 parking spaces. It's the Curtis. Oh, you know what? Sorry, that's it. So yeah, they don't have as much parking.
3.5.
4, yeah.
to your point, Jesse's comment earlier, I think was important for us to know that this change is for the entire zone.
I think that is really important to keep.
And so I pulled up the city map, and the only place I can find this zone is right here.
Yeah, it's 4 blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just think it's important that
but I
we
think
are-
that was important
yeah.
to say because I made a mental check here. I wanted you guys to see this is the only area that has it.
Yeah. And to that note, I am actually for this. I want to just make sure that we're all clear, that we are aware that we're making it for that whole area. And I think that there might be opportunity talking with Zion's Bank and saying, hey, in our nighttime evening, can we, I don't know if it's a lease or if it's just an agreement.
Cross-parking.
Yeah, cross parking, and because there's a lot of parking spots there, right? And if we can get them close to your venue.
Could be striped way more efficient. Like they could.
And the
they could
fence
add
thing,
A lot more.
I know that when that was happening, most tenants in that area were really excited about it. There was a buzz, and so if we could reconvene that conversation, it would be very helpful for that area.
Need more access to get into there, because I mean, right now it's only Zionist.
Right. It's just the one, yeah. And if you,
The only other thing to keep in mind is with the fire department being there, like a couple blocks north, on that site, they don't go down Main Street when they get paged to an accident. They'll fly through pretty quickly. They're not reckless by any means, but I mean, they've got emergencies to get to.
what Jackie was saying is, because I couldn't hear you in TV land, is just that there's only the one access here, but then also the fire department, when they're clearing, it could cause some issues.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, so Jesse, are you saying that it would definitely be worth it to revive the conversation with city council?
Oh, for sure. Especially if that was the holdout. I actually didn't know who the holdout was. But when it was happening, most of these businesses, especially on this, well, actually, all of it, we're excited about the opportunity of having more parking and more access to their businesses, because there's just not a lot of ways to get from here. A couple of businesses have back doors, but some of them you have to walk all the way around to get to. And the same on this side. So the more access that we can have to all of these businesses, the more vibrant that downtown area is going to be.
Agreed.
So
Can we have you?
Come up to the mic real quick. Yeah. And state your name.
Is public hearing open?
It's
Not to
over.
be rude. I
No.
don't- You can talk. I'd just say,
Yes,
is it open still?
No, it's over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
So you can just ignore me.
No, I'm gonna listen.
James Hilton. There's just been a lot of talk here about parking, but I think it'd be worth looking into the revenue these businesses bring into the city versus farther north up Main Street, where you have newer businesses with wide parking spots, and you don't really see very much in the way of pedestrians there or anything like that. And I feel like adding more parking just to include is just motivating more drivers on the street and causing more traffic. I think it'd be worth looking into just what is the business, like what's the revenue of this older area versus the newer businesses where there is a ton of parking lot, and see how productive the land usage is for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just had a thought for
My only,
Dave. Have we ever looked into what it would do, have someone study what it would do to have paid parking on Main Street?
No.
Would that hurt or help the businesses, I wonder?
I help.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but I'm wondering, I could see it going, I could see that sword being sharp. on both
Double-edged
sides.
sword, probably.
I will say this, this thing, we could do a really, really deep dive. One thing that philosophically I really, really believe in is that for areas like this to thrive, they need to be treated like other contemporary commercial environments. This is not Canyon Creek, for example, but people that frequent those types of
Right.
businesses, they get used to good access to parking, and they get used to free parking and that type of a thing. So sometimes to not have, those situations be on equal footing, it is a competitive disadvantage, I think, for an area. And it goes way beyond that. Other elements of programming and the like for successful historic central business districts. Oftentimes they're managed as a district exactly like at one point in time enclosed shopping malls were. Now it's more other types of retail centers, power centers, regional areas for commerce.
I could see that helping the
Like,
area, actually. If it was looked
It's
at more as a
essential,
whole.
really, to make things work optimally. At some point in Spanish Fork's future, I think that happens. I really do. Provo's been somewhat successful with their downtown alliance and different efforts that they've had.
Maybe this is something we could study with a general plan, looking at that and seeing, what we can do to keep making sure the parking's better and that type of thing, right?
My thought was it potentially could get employees off of Main Street and have more customers on Main Street.
Which is fundamental, absolutely, right? We've
Right.
had that conversation with business operators, say, please don't let your
For their own
your
business.
your
You'd think they're
employees
doing
park.
that anyway, 'cause
Well, and
it's in their best
So one of the
interest.
ways that you address that is just by having some time limits in different areas. So
That's
that
another
people-
thought I had, hour.
And
Which
we
is
do
2
have
hours,
that
right?
exists today
Okay.
on Main Street, but it does not exist on the cross streets. We tried to do that.
I don't want
years ago.
Provo's parking enforcement to come down to Spanish Fork. but I'm not willing to go that far.
We can
I've
deal
had
with
my
that.
share of boots on my car, and I don't want to.
I will be the parking enforcement if you want.
So, to Chairman Cardin's maybe question or point, it was 7 years ago that we brought some experts in from around the country. They volunteered their time. And when I say experts, we had the best of the best that gave us a book full of suggestions as to how to make this part of the community better. We have talked about potentially as maybe like a 10-year anniversary of that, doing a round two, maybe even trying to get some of those same folks back. So maybe looking down the road a little bit, that's one thing that I That's one thing I have in mind by way of the right opportunity, maybe the right time to really do
Right.
another refocus on downtown.
Because, yeah, and as mentioned before by several people, there's some very not important, that's not the right word, but very impactful businesses that are downtown that have been there for decades and have thrived, and, you know, with the ebb and flows of the economy. So it's important that we, you know, put in the right effort to try to make sure that they are successful.
Jesse, are they, I would be curious, you said they're thriving. Are they doing better this year than last? I mean, do we know that they're
I think that I think that's going to ebb and flow between business to business, but like there's a lot more traffic downtown than there has been.
Okay. I hope they're thriving. I hope
we just had a Winter Lights Parade that brought a lot of people.
You might know is why
yeah.
I'm asking, because you had a business down there.
Yeah. You had a comment?
No, I just wondered if Joseph was ready for his motion.
Oh, are you ready for your motion?
I was ready a half hour ago, Todd.
You guys are free to join us any week, or any month. It's the same.
Do you guys want me to do this?
Yeah,
Yes.
we want to.
I move the Planning Commission recommends approval of the Title 15 Commercial Downtown Amendment as proposed.
Any discussions on that motion? If not, is there a second?
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
That's exciting.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
excited.
you. Thank
I'm
you.
going to look for reasons to use that business.
Okay,
I've got 2 more children to
we're gonna
get
move
married.
on to Title 15 amendments.
Mr. Chairman, how do you feel about us continuing this?
I am okay with
Still a work in progress. I don't think this is the right time necessarily to take more of your time. Maybe at the end of the meeting, I might just provide a quick update, but otherwise, I'm ready to request that you continue the other Title 15 amendments.
Okay, we can continue this. So do we need to make a motion for that? Or, yes.
I move that we continue item B, Title 15 amendments.
Okay, got a motion?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's continued. My papers are all jumbled here.
Transportation.
Transportation. Michael's favorite.
How many more roundabouts are you doing, Michael? 20.
At least a couple more on 4th North.
Well, I noticed that you're canceling a planned roundabout sitting in a light. When I was looking at it, I can't remember which.
See how much air you can get?
I have a transportation question. When are you connecting Spanish Fork Parkway? By SR 51.
What, you got the,
Yeah, there's a. it's on city
Is that part of this
did you get the
presentation?
approval from the railroad?
Did you just say fall?
Yeah,
This fall?
yeah.
And it's on city council.
It was
Next
spring,
Wednesday.
like 2 days ago.
Well,
I heard fall 2 years ago.
Dave, how long have you worked for the
Railroad
government?
has-
just say that it was ordinance of the little on this faster.
But we got approval.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Can we have a
Just as
party?
fast as it can be built.
That's, we need the event center to be done so we can have a party.
Yes, that's a good reason you could have a party.
Rent Jackie's house.
So I said fall, we're hoping mid to early summer.
Awesome.
All right.
It's cool.
I do have questions for you on this.
but good.
So you can't just blow through it this time.
I'll
Go as fast or slow as you want it to.
It's our favorite part of the night.
I'm trying to show both, but so you can still see stuff. I think we talked about these, but maybe it's just being up at night, but.
It feels like we talk about
Can
it
I ask
all the
you-
time.
Can I ask you my question to start off?
Yes.
Okay,
If you have
why,
questions, ask, otherwise we'll go through.
okay, why are you doing a main thoroughfare at Third when you've got when it seems like Fourth is the more natural flow there?
Straight through to.
Straight through from the Costco light. Why do you have to jog over to Third? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Fourth is actually currently kind of a thoroughfare, actually.
It is, but why are you putting roundabouts on Third and not Fourth?
Because Third's like 2+ times bigger than Fourth. And
So we want more
Third has
cars.
the least amount of jog at Fourth North. And there's the church there, we can use the property, which it is on the street too. Just looking at it, just the size of it, you can eventually, you could even have 2 lanes in each direction if you really wanted to. Like it's as wide as Main Street.
I know,
it's 4 feet.
I know, I do travel it, and but it seems like it's such a weird jog to go from Fourth.
Here and
Yeah,
across.
that jog is weird.
But you're not seeing it, but you have a jog right here too.
What?
At Fourth and Fourth?
North.
What is that? It's offset by about 20 feet?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
All of them along there.
Is it because there's an elementary school there? Is that where the school is?
No, all the streets are.
City
all
planning.
center on that.
It has to do with when Spanish Fork was laid out. The original town ended at 8th North, or I mean at 4th North. And so they came up and did another section, and they didn't worry too much about how they lined up.
So you have this offset,
So-
you have this offset.
Yeah.
This one's a little better, this one's still. not
That's
great.
Fourth, the one you're talking about.
And then you have this one, and the other reason too is it stays pretty wide the entire way.
So that makes sense. It's just annoying that the big traffic.
The
We wanna
other
get more
reason,
cars
too,
on that?
is where it dead ends, so Fourth to East dead ends into the cemetery, where Third East goes all the way up Scenic Drive. So looking a little bigger picture on this one, is this creates a thoroughfare of sorts all the way up Scenic Drive. So once you're at Scenic Drive, if you did hit green lights, let's just say, you would be able to get all the way to at least 8th North, if not to Costco on one street.
How many cars will this get off Main Street?
27.
Thank you, Joseph.
You're welcome.
He's shooting a little high.
So,
So what are these two, the one on each side here? Those are lights, right?
they're gonna be lights?
They will be lights.
Now, so when you come to this roundabout,
Let's go on this map so you can see what's there.
yeah, what, is that gonna cause some problems with
No.
backing?
Roundabouts never cause problems, John.
Oh, never.
I love roundabouts.
Well, but in this case, there's no through north outlet out of that, so,
We would love to have this go straight through, right? There's
Right.
obviously a couple houses
and all
apartment
those.
complexes.
Yes.
And then you already have existing signals at each of these intersections.
That's right.
And so this signal would be too close to these signals,
Yeah,
and then you'd need millions of dollars to get through here. So using this existing corridor and this one gets you to Macy's, Costco, this area. So on Third, have the roundabout that can then disperse traffic left or right,
right.
and
That,
then have signals at these two.
so with just one block, is there a concern? Does I count, if there's a lot of traffic here and I'm going towards Macy's, that's not a lot of one block, we could be backed up there forever, and then the same thing here.
Sure, so west we're not really concerned at all, east is a little different. West, most of the turns, you'll be going right, there won't be a lot going to Main Street. You could argue either way, but
Okay.
you can have a right turn lane too, so your rights won't ever stop, and then you'll just have through, and your
Okay.
south will be a pretty minimal movement. There will be people wanting to come here to Third East, or take a right over to here. So I think it'll be one of those where if you stop east-west, it'll be just for a second, let the one or two cars roll through. The detector says there's no car, it changes back to green, east-west.
And Fourth,
That's a left-hand turn.
Fourth's a little
everybody
harder.
wants to get to this business right here, so it's gonna be a lot of traffic.
He's right. He's right. I mean,
thousands
wiser
of
words,
cars.
wiser words have never been said.
That's why they're building
people
6 of
coming
them.
west would just take a right, so that's not as big a concern. There's tons of
Right.
cleaning on this street. So it'd be the ones coming here and
Right.
taking the left. So you'd have at least 18 cars plus to get into the roundabout
Yeah.
with a left turn. I don't know.
Well, I would imagine there's been traffic studies that can answer my question
Yeah,
specifically,
so we have
but,
a traffic engineer analyzing these to lay out concepts. Obviously, there's property acquisition and all that.
yeah.
He's looking specifically at that exact question.
Yeah, because-
This left-hand turn at peak hour, does this work?
I'm a proponent of the roundabouts, but on Fourth North, those two at school, in the afternoon can get really ugly when we've got school and then people coming home from work.
At Fourth
Ye-
North and 51?
Yeah, both of them.
It's
That
because
one
people
and
aren't
on-
used to
on
looking for
8th North,
walkers,
Or 8th
I
East.
think.
I feel like the delay is a little bit less than the four-way stop.
Pedestrians.
Not pedestrians. walking.
Pedestrians.
So,
People aren't used to looking for pedestrians at roundabouts. That's what I think it is. It's awful.
it is a little bit bad. But, you know, those two get backed up quite a ways in the afternoon. I just avoid Fourth North completely in the afternoon or early morning for that reason, is that those two roundabouts, while they're very effective in moving the traffic, there's just so much traffic with the elementary school and the high school, you know, there. You get a lot of traffic coming from Mapleton, going to Mapleton, and then the town traffic.
That's what I'm thinking. I was like, it's
Yeah.
already, it's gonna.
Yeah, let's
it's
get,
gonna
well,
alleviate
that'll
that.
help, but it'll help a lot.
It will.
It'll help a
The other
lot.
one too at school that makes it bad, and again, I don't wanna get too far off the track here,
Yeah.
but is
Sorry.
Reese being down in where it is without a connecting street out.
Yes.
So when this comes out, it's all right-hand turns to have these people drive down to somewhere they could just do if this were connected.
Yeah.
Same thing with the left-hand turns out, which is actually the worst movement
Yeah.
to get to their house right there, rather than going right. So getting this connection through is another piece that
When does that happen?
make these worse.
Right.
When this guy says that we can buy his property.
Did you know?
Understood.
Well,
Understood.
you could recommend condemnation.
Is this the railroad? And is this
Yes,
the one
it
that's
is.
gonna go away, that's supposed to go away? Eventually?
wanted to.
Is this the one that feeds onto Highway 6?
Yes.
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 So that will also help, because if you have trains stopping traffic here, it also causes issues.
So, yeah. Anyway, so back to our original conversation.
That's this little
That just,
section here.
yeah, that just seems a little weird to me to have a light there, a roundabout and a light there all in 3 blocks, but
Roundabout.
if it's gonna make the flow better, that seems
The
fine
one that
to
is
me.
not needed at all.
I think you've got to
But-
have
We're
them.
gonna put.
Yeah,
sets
but
of
what I want
columns.
is a roundabout there. I do not go to this intersection anymore because I get angry every time I go there now. Because when I go,
Can't imagine
Shauna, you do not.
I get angry.
No, you're
'Cause if I'm
exaggerating.
driving in this, I'm going this way, right? I'm going from 8th North and I'm gonna go to Highway 6 and turn, I'm gonna go to Highway 6, so I'm kind of, sort of turning left. It takes so long for that stinking light to change.
I agree.
Oh my goodness.
It's a public health crisis.
It is.
For me, it is too. She's not wrong.
Anyway, that's all.
Maybe we need a car wash there.
That would help everything, a car wash.
Anyway,
right.
if the light changed more
There were
often,
more
it would
clean
be,
cars.
it wouldn't,
At least
it
3
would be
more in this
fine,
town.
But anyhow, okay, keep going.
At some point, this will be more of a, not I-15, but won't be attached to those signals. But that's the longer range plan because of the issues with these intersections. So
My other question is, oh my goodness, look at all those lights that are going to be on Center Street. That's so many lights.
there's a lot of lights.
It'll be a while.
All right.
Is there any more of the presentation?
Are we done with this slide?
I'm done. I'm
Do
done.
you want to talk about this one?
You know my feelings on it.
He loves it.
I move we reject the updated transportation master plan.
Gone through these before, if you remember, there are trails that need to be added. Where we have collector roads, they were just not on the trails plan, so. By policy, they're there, we're just putting them in another spot so they're
Right.
better recorded.
Like a little.
This is the only other, this is the new one, I guess we'll call it the new one.
Oh.
So our old plan had a, oh, that's true, that's true, all right, I got all excited.
Not quite ready for that one.
There's a new one.
It's a sneak peek.
Oh. So the hospital's right here, the old plan had a curve through here that didn't line up with what Springville's hoping to do with this roundabout connection over to their main roadway this way. So Now, obviously, the road may not go exactly this direction, but we wanted to show that we're gonna prioritize a through movement, not this S-curve that doesn't line up with.
Does that affect that proposal that we saw? Isn't that running through the middle of that?
They're at a point where they certainly can adapt.
Okay.
We just wanted to show that it's important that these two tie together.
Great.
How it gets from A to B, it's pretty flexible that way.
Gotcha.
We need them to line up.
And in the presentation, isn't there one that is attempting to connect to Salem?
That's the one that's DRC continued.
Okay, that's one that's continued. Okay, back to South Main Street. In city council last month, they condemned some land, or took it by, it has not gone through still. They authorized it, it hasn't been done yet. So we can't really have a plan there until we know what.
We have a plan.
Is it on this?
It's already on the master
Already on the
plan.
transportation plan.
Well, yeah, I thought I saw it, and we just went through South Main Street fast.
It's
But
Mike's really familiar with it.
Yeah. And so.
It's basically that volunteer drive extend east from the current.
to connect over with those other businesses so they don't have to go on that other,
Well, more importantly, if you picture the townhomes.
not
that are
businesses,
built
yeah, I meant
east of
residences.
Gets them to the freeway.
Oh,
Main
right,
Street and Annie's Acres, that other residential over there.
yeah, that's what I meant.
So, River Run Townhomes, Annie's Acres.
That's,
that
so,
connection.
yeah, that's gonna go straight through.
So the section that John's talking about is right here.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions at this point?
Nope.
Okay, then we'll go into public hearing. Anyone here to talk about transportation?
How do I want to say this?
Should probably state your
But-
name
Hi,
first.
I'm Jackie Larson.
But,
Sorry.
and talk into the mic.
Yeah, pull that mic down for you.
There we go.
Sorry. Other than Main Street, and I guess Center Street, is there going to be any access into the city that does not have a roundabout? Because if the purpose, now don't get me,
Mike will not be happy
like, because
till.
there's lights all the way down through Center Street.
8,000 south over by
Okay.
Revere Health won't.
Yeah. Out here.
It won't?
No, on the by River Health.
Yeah. Okay.
On that street. Just off.
Because
of
I think, like, if the whole plan is to get people kind of off Main Street a little bit to make it more accessible, I think people are gonna try to avoid the roundabouts because they are what they are. And then the one on 4th North and 3rd West. I mean, with kids having to cross there, have we thought about?
Jackie,
Roundabouts are way
is
safer
your
than
feel that
cities.
people avoid the roundabouts in general? Is that your feel?
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Really?
Yeah, I'm glad you
Well,
mentioned it,
here's
'cause
my offer that I
I'll keep
extended.
my ear to
So,
the
I
ground.
mean, think of, we have the fairgrounds here, right? Most other like highways of where anybody goes to access the fairgrounds, putting roundabouts on all the roads. I think like Shepherd's, I think there was like an concern with them too, like going down through 4th and having to kick around through there and like, if you're gonna have to kick around more with your eggs. I've offered, and I'll extend the offer to you guys too, maybe I will bring the stock trailer next time to city council. We could go on a tour of roundabouts around town with the trailer and see what everybody actually really feels about it, but I don't know that anybody's gonna take me up on that offer, but you'd get a,
I know they're
real feel for it?
designed to be able to handle a fire truck. And
They
that should be
say that, but if
as
you
long as
get-
your stock trailer, right?
animals in there though, and shifting them, it's just not safe for them. Either which way. I mean, when I would even come hauling into town, I would even avoid Main Street because you try stopping, so.
True.
So, I mean, so is there just Main Street, Center Street, and then the highway are the only ones that won't have roundabouts on them?
Canyon Road doesn't either.
Okay, answers my question.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other? State your name again.
Oh, James Hilton. I would like for there to be a bit more like bike paths with these roads, because we have bike paths built in the city, but the problem is, and this is really frustrating, so I'm trying to be less reliant on my car, but that's besides the point. Going around cycling or going around any way that's not by car can be pretty aggravating, and so those with disabilities, and ever since I started taking public transportation and talking to some people that get glaucoma or sorry to get in, but there's a lot of people that get overlooked, and I just want to make sure that we have options for everyone, and that we have a better mobility freedom for everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
I'm August Bigelow. I know there's a handful of schools. I believe there are a lot of them are lined up to where these traffic lights are. Is there anything involved in this transportation plan to like deal with like maybe raised walkways on the roads to like improve pedestrian safety and this stuff? I mean, this is all very automobile oriented. There's no active transportation mentioned like in these changes. Like the guy right before me, I didn't catch his name, said like biking stuff. Biking is a little not super developed here. There's a unprotected bike lane on Center Street, which is basically as if it's not there, but if it's not protected. There's just a lot of stuff in here that doesn't feel like it takes into account people walking around. There's a trail system, but the trail's not as much as like a bike path or lane. And I know like specifically, I like seeing that there's some lights popping up on Center Street where like Diamond Fork Junior High is. Some stuff popped up about like some safety issues there, crossing guard stuff recently about like how just not safe it is. So anything about doing a more, rather than just slapping a light there, is there anything else we can do to the roads to make them safer too? Like there's a bunch of raise the asphalt on the crossing so it's the same level as the sidewalk. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that I'm wondering if that's documented anywhere to increase pedestrian safety too, rather than just it is car traffic, but other people walk too, people with disabilities, things like that.
Perfect. Thank you, August.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, if not, we'll go out of public hearing. You pulled up some things you want to talk about, what you're showing?
Yeah, so we have about 2-3 years ago, we formed a traffic safety committee that's made up of public safety, so the police, the fire and EMS, the streets division, public works, engineering, traffic engineering. So we meet once a month and go over concerns like the 9th East Center Street at Diamond Fork. This is one that we did last year. This is 1430 East, 1A North, just across the bridge. Center Street. So that was we did pedestrian counts, made sure we met all the warrants. We did design. There's flashing beacons, crosswalk right here. So while we don't have a plan down to this detail of which intersections get what type of treatment within the master plan, because like most of our imagery is this far out, right? We're looking at connectivity in big scale. So this is our trails and bike plan kind of combined. So that's kind of our master plan, little 10,000 foot view, and then we go off of requests. We do studies independently for, as you said, raised crosswalks, lights, the RFFB, the flashing ones. Work closely with the school to listen to their concerns for crossing guards or flashing things like this. So while there's not a section that we're going through today, there's city processes and committees made to kind of hyper-focus on those.
So if citizens had, or if we wanted to bring up concerns or areas that we've noticed, how would they go about that process?
So
of identifying
there's
it?
a citizen request form, that's where we get most of them. If not, people walk in or they call, but, there's the one you can go and say, hey, there's, the flashing light is out at this intersection, by the school. And then it gets routed to someone who checks it, by the minute kind of thing, and then he triages it out to the right, department, and then guys under me would get the school ones, then they drive out, check it out, talk to the principals, talk to whoever, put in a work request, and then we get it fixed.
One thing that I learned about in some transportation meetings is there's a difference between recreation bike trails and commuter bike lanes. As you're making the plans for bike lanes in the area, are you thinking about people that might want to be commuting or using, going to businesses and such?
Yeah, so you're talking
Bike
about
lane.
Center Street, have a painted white line, or a bike lane. Yeah, so some is constricted by road width. So as we talk about on Fourth East, it's a terrible place to put a bike lane because you have cars that park and then you have a travel lane and that's it. There's nowhere to put it. We're developing Third East, as you can see on this plan here, this blue one. That's gonna be a spot where we wanna put striped bike lanes.
That makes sense.
So,
Thank you.
but we don't want a trail because it would go into someone's front yard and we're buying property because trails are
Right.
like that out
Right.
there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
So, anyway.
Mike, can I add to that? There was
Absolutely.
the regional transportation plan's being updated now. Michelle, I don't know if you might know as much or more than I do about this, but there was a meeting this afternoon, in fact, with the folks that are updating that. And really the focus of that conversation was active transportation. We were given an opportunity as a city to rank our 5 priority projects in terms of improving how our residents can get around our part of the valley without driving. And we talked about Canyon Creek Parkway and making that connection up to what's going to be a brand-new road at our 2700 North here. We talked about State Road 51, which ties into Main Street in Springville, because we know that we have residents in the community that they commute via bicycle to Provo. So really important connections there. There's going to be a connection at the Mapleton Lateral between a trail that's been built in Mapleton, basically the mouth of Spanish Fork Canyon, over to our river trail, and is almost a continuation of that, constructing a trail along the not Mill Race. Help me out.
Highline Canal.
Highline Canal,
Highline
thank
Canal.
you. Highline, yeah. Which eventually will go all the way down into Santaquin, also by way of connecting us, in that case, communities to the south, as well as improving our Main Street, which is a state route.
Has the
Connects
railroad,
all the way through to Payson. Those are the kind of facilities that we're talking about having improved to make it to where people actually can get to where they need to go via something other than a car.
has the railroad approved the crossover from Mapleton to Spanish Fork to connect our trails yet?
The one down here,
Yes.
I have not heard recently.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Can ask.
We only ask for a few things from the railroad at a time.
I was hoping they'd do those two
Yeah, at the same time. Any comments or any questions that we didn't address? No? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to recommend the approval of the proposed amendments to the Transportation Master Plan.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. All right. No other business, we're ready. Just kidding.
Only quick ones, if you guys still have time. We have some concept plans to review. At least for tonight, 2 of the 4 that we placed on your agenda have washed out, so Canyon Gate would be the first one that we'd like to dive into.
Canyon Court?
Court?
Yep. Different project, Canyon Court, thanks.
Lots of
Is at the
canyons.
corner of, exactly, tons of canyons. Corner of 400 North and Spanish Fork Parkway, a property that since this annexation has been zoned commercial. You've talked about this project a couple of different times before, just once with us as staff in October. The applicant, Corey Anderson, who's here with us, he presented. After having had a few bites at the apple, it's another opportunity here tonight to get your thoughts and feedback. We hope that you're just as direct and candid as you possibly can be. We certainly need feedback with the idea that if this project goes forward, everybody wants to get it to a point where there's consensus on all the different aspects of it, so that when we start to take into account public input and different things like that, hopefully process through to approval and construction could go as smoothly as possible. And at the same time, if this is a non-starter for anybody, we need to hear that now. That's just my little bit of background. The Development Review Committee reviewed exactly what we'll present tonight earlier today. I'll touch on some of what I think are the highlights that came from that, and maybe I'll ask Brandon to add to anything that I missed that he thinks is significant, as well as Corey or anybody else. But before that, I want to talk about kind of the regulatory situation with what we're talking about here. We're talking about a project that is proposed to have a commercial and a residential component. We have some zoning districts that allow for that. We also have the prospect of potentially zoning a project so that it has different zones. In this particular case, I have believed since we first started talking about it that most likely our urban village commercial zone is the best candidate to ultimately accommodate what's being proposed here if people want to see what's being proposed here constructed. And I say that with the understanding that our commercial urban village zone would have to be changed in maybe quite a few ways to accommodate what's being proposed here, but it is the closest zoning district that we have to what's being proposed in its current state. So,
is there any other area in the city that urban village zone is currently applied?
To the west of the neighborhood Walmart, I believe there still is some property that is zoned urban village commercial.
But nothing built on it.
No, we changed,
Developed.
didn't we change it?
We changed part of it.
Yes. So where the neighborhood Walmart exists today and the condominiums that are next to the neighborhood Walmart, the little commercial development to the north of it, that was all zoned urban village commercial, which also may help me make a point, which is that our urban village commercial zone was written 20 or so years ago with great intentions. It has some really, really unique requirements. It is not proved to be a feasible zoning tool to use to date. If we couldn't use the urban village commercial zone to make the condominiums, neighborhood Walmart, and other commercial uses in that area, fit into that zoning concept, then I think that's just another suggestion that it needs to be changed.
Wait, but you just said it is. It is urban, it is zoned that.
It's currently zoned.
You guys
Commercial. It was
zoned it
changed.
per piece?
Yes.
So it's changed from urban village commercial to R4,
R4 and then
C2.
C2, got it.
Yeah.
Which would be, if
Right.
we couldn't use it in this application, we'd have to do something similar there.
We would, which would probably require some changes to some other zones, which incidentally, I'm really not comfortable with. Probably the most significant one right now, for a lot of reasons, I think the minimum project size for an R4 project is something that
12 acres.
we should adhere to, 12 acres.
12 acres.
And that simply, I think, not only do I think it doesn't work in this case, but it's probably detrimental, given what the city wants, which is as much commercial on the site as can be, and there are other things as well, but that's the main one that jumps out at me. So
if we like this concept, we need to be prepared to make some changes to the urban village And that'd come in a subsequent meeting.
It would. And in fact, sometimes having a goal in mind really is a great way to go about crafting a zoning text amendment.
Having a real-life application for it, seeing what works and doesn't.
Well said. Yep. So that would be part of the process going forward, certainly as well. And just to reiterate it, there are different ways that could be achieved. I'm just recommending that at least the urban village commercial zone be strongly considered there. So,
A question along that. So, currently it's 12 acres. They're proposing 19 acres, right?
this site.
Yeah, this site. And why is it that the 12 acres were arrived at? Is that as large as we want to see a project like this for any reason, or is there?
This is.
I mean, how did we come about?
You're talking about the minimum requirement for. Yeah, that's
It's
a great.
arbitrary.
It's not entirely arbitrary, but.
You just gotta pick a number.
We, well before the R4 zone came about, were getting lots of requests for some zoning mechanism that would allow for more than 12 units to the acre, which is where zoning topped out before that zone was created. And we met with a lot of folks over the course of a few years. And it became my understanding, and I think this is proved to be true, that there's a minimum project size that is important if projects are going to have certain amenities. And it's 200 or so units as a minimum. So it was simply a matter of some fundamental math that if we're allowing somebody to go up to 20 units to the acre, at the time actually it was 18 initially, you know, so what should a minimum project size be? If we didn't want to have a bunch of smaller projects maybe that didn't have the same level of quality in terms of amenities or otherwise, we wanted something, just a bigger contemporary kind of development. So that was the rationale, at least for that.
So when I asked Santaquin's mayor about their, what is this called again? Urban? Anyway, when I asked them about this zone, they said that the main problem with theirs is having businesses businesses and residents in the same building. So like businesses downstairs and the residences upstairs, they have a hard time, being good neighbors, but I think also filling those commercial places. So this is different, and we may want to think about changing it so that the buildings are different from each other, right?
Well, one thing to think
Separate.
about in terms of just a mixed-use project is whether or not you'd want to encourage residential and non-residential uses to cohabitate in the same structure, how buildings with different uses would orient to one another, and that type of a thing. I'm not really familiar with Santaquin's project. I toured it when it was first built, but I don't know.
I helped somebody move into the top floor of one of them.
You mentioned that once, yeah, I remember.
This application doesn't have any retail on the first floor.
It does.
They're separate
The
buildings.
latest rendition does.
It does?
And we can talk about
Okay.
that. It's a relatively minor part of the overall design, I would say, but Sean, I don't know if that helps at all, but I'm really not that familiar with their experience. I will say that there are projects in the valley, and I think as much as anything, it's where they're at, where
Traffic counts and
leasing the retail part of it has proved to be a challenge, where it's uses that cohabitate in the same structure.
Like, I wonder how it is at the Riverwoods. What's the?
And there they haven't done that in particular, right? They all of, I take that back. There is some,
Yeah,
there is on that
Riverwoods.
one.
A reminder, yeah.
Yeah,
There's some on,
Anyway.
There's some there.
yeah, that's correct. I'd forgotten
and
about
there's
that.
some near BYU that have those, the bottom floor is commercial and then they're renting.
Did Springville
above
just
it.
do that too?
Springville's done that,
Springville's got it.
a couple of places.
Anyway. Oh, right. That's true.
At present, our urban village commercial zone wouldn't require that. It does allow for the uses to be segregated in different buildings, so kind of a horizontal mixed use. It also does allow, however, for the vertical. If we think about a real urban environment, typically it is vertical, kind of integration of different uses and that type of a thing. All things of which that I think we can address from a regulatory perspective if, again, there's some measure of consensus about what you want to see. So that all being said, maybe if I could just take a quick minute and give you our recap from the DRC meeting. And I'm really anxious to turn the time over to the applicant and his team.
Is there any plan that that railroad's going anywhere? Or is it just, they're going to keep using that as an active line?
That one's there forever, right?
Yeah, that has been identified as the one that will not go away.
Get a second rail there.
Quite possibly, yeah, with an additional rail line there.
Okay.
Can you go to their overall layout, the plan view, Mike? Yeah, there.
Next door to you.
So.
You guys don't mind?
Actually, no problem. I don't mind.
You guys want to troubleshoot anything that maybe get wrong in terms of just, I'm going to try to parrot what we talked about today.
You can say like, hey, be more persuasive, things like that.
It's important for me to note that at least on the DRC, there are some people that do not like the idea of there being any residential use here. So that was discussed. It's an opinion that has been expressed before. So I've checked that box. That's been noted. Parking always gets talked about. It was talked about quite a bit. I haven't actually counted, but I trust that as proposed here, this meets our current parking requirement. 2.5 spaces per unit with garages in different configurations. So the idea was thrown out to potentially consider for projects of this nature, less than 2.5 spaces per home, and different concepts relative to how that could be accomplished were discussed, which included the idea that maybe if there are cross-parking easements and that type of thing in place for some of the parking in the non-residential areas, that should count towards the required parking for the residential areas. We have done that before.
And are they all 2-bed, 1-bath, or are there any single?
It was represented that they're all 2-bedroom and 1 bath.
All of them? Okay.
Yep. Which also was discussed in the context of there not needing to be more than 2 parking spaces. And maybe I'll let you guys just talk more about how that gets maybe regulated specifically in projects that they've done elsewhere. So thinking from that perspective, even if the parking requirement went from 2.5 to 2.25, so a quarter of a space less per unit with 90 units, that's 22 and a half spaces less that they would need to provide, which potentially allows them to do some things. The applicant suggested that maybe this space here could be expanded. You could do away with a lot of asphalt and just have that be a bigger green space area. This is maybe me adding to the conversation that we had, but in terms of a concern being raised about just the pedestrian environment, people getting to and from the non-residential part of the project to the residential part without feeling like they just live in a strip mall. It's one way that it was articulated. I think maybe improving some green space, maybe even having space that is designed with amenities and improvements that are both intended to be for patrons of the commercial area as well as residents of the residential area, maybe as a way to make this feel more like a cohesive neighborhood kind of environment that has distinct uses, residential and non-residential. That was discussed.
I remember that there was the soda shop being that close to the residences was also a concern earlier in DRC, just FYI.
Yeah, so clearly, with drive-through being, I think, the main way that people patronize this particular type of a business, obviously really automobile-oriented, so close to a
Car wash
residential
would do
use.
better there, though.
You could
Are
compare that
these-
to a car wash, maybe
What-
even in that regard.
Okay, which of these here are residents, which are,
Sorry, these are entirely residential buildings, so the proposal currently would have 6 15-unit buildings. And maybe when we get to some elevations in a minute, we can discuss this in more detail, but as designed, this is proposed to be non-residential uses on the first floor with 2 floors above of residential uses here. So they're vertical mixed use on that.
and then what are these?
Retail, commercial buildings with the prospect of having drive-throughs.
Could the first floor be, is it only retail or can it be office, regular office space?
I'd just say non-residential, yeah.
And that, okay.
That's how.
That fits in the urban village, or we'll make it fit.
The idea, I think, should be that either,
I
yeah,
agree.
whatever it is, retail, professional office,
I agree.
personal service, yeah.
Because I could see that being a great spot to office, especially next to a grocery store. You got some other retail spots. I mean, that could be fantastic.
These are great candidate uses for, yeah, that kind of mixed use. So, Brandon, maybe?
The only big picture item you're missing is the discussion of forcing the commercial, not only improvements, to go first.
Yeah, timing, thank you. That's an important one. The idea that, I mean, I'll explain it this way. Right now, the urban village commercial zone requires that a certain amount of non-retail space be constructed per phase to make sure that you don't end up with just an exclusively residential project.
Does it
So we-
also require a certain amount of retail space?
Non-residential, not explicitly retail, and I think it says commercial,
Okay.
which for us could be office or otherwise. Yeah.
Did they talk about putting this over here, right by where the grocery store?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving it.
Just relocating it, that was
That just
discussed, so. High level wise, those were talked about. Mike, maybe if you could just go through some of the
Is
other
this a court or a pool?
pickleball court as proposed.
Is there a playground area?
That's the only green space there.
This is just green space.
That would be the space. I think talking about maybe amenities that do and don't make sense for this is an important thing though to talk through at some point.
I'm assuming this is not a road on the backside, correct?
No, the idea is
This
that there
is
is
a
some
road
kind of
here.
a landscape buffer.
Okay.
Is the back part the property line? I mean, like right there?
So the townhomes would be just on the other side of.
Like that's the property line, right?
Yes.
How many total units?
90 plus, this was what per building? 12 per building? So plus another 24, 114.
Is the idea still owner occupied with FHA loan, even these ones here?
50/50.
No, these ones would be rent? Okay.
How do you guys estimate it?
You did great, good job.
Hope so. Thanks.
Any questions? What do you want me to touch on here?
Go ahead and state your name so she can put it in.
Oh,
the
Corey
notes.
Anderson.
I'm wondering about having it be like a nice walking area. There was one of these that I have been to recently that is similar to this, that had really nice connected walking paths all through and around the perimeter area.
Yeah, and they touched on that at DRC today.
Okay.
When I came here a month ago or so, our focus has been on the architectural. That was the big discussion item when we came last time. So we've focused on that. The walkability on this, I think, is going to be simple and easy to get that. The one I'd like to get your opinion on that parking, because that would be something that if we can take out this asphalt right through here and make this more of a green space, the walkability, I think, is going to be a lot easier to, do crosswalks and different things so they can walk to retail and over to the grocery store.
What's your parking count without that?
Right now, this is laid out at 2.5, and I think that's going to take us down to about 2.25.
So in your lot 7, that residential parcel,
Yes.
you're right now you're hitting 2.5.
Yes, 2.5.
Not counting any of the other cross parking or anything like that.
If there's a standalone, that would be 2.5 with 60%. It may not show, but it doesn't show them in front of this one, but like those are garages to meet that 60% garage space out in front there. There would be some more along along here as well. Unless you'd let me do all carports. All right, moving on.
Can you guys tell me about carports? Is it just that they're ugly? What's the, I mean, commissioners, what's the, like the covered, are carports like little covered parking areas?
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion and I don't know.
They're not enclosed,
So,
like a garage.
okay.
Yeah, it's just covered parking. In our other projects, we do one covered parking stall per unit, and they're assigned that private parking stall, which we would, like to do in front of all those. I mean, it's going to be a management issue. The thing I worry about, and I'd like to get feedback on, how do you make sure that these just don't turn into storage units?
Same way you enforce your owner
Parking and
occupied
everything,
versus rental. You're gonna have to have self-enforcement.
Is there any other elevation, Mike?
There's one that flashed up.
So,
That's it.
last time we came,
Mike, can you go up one more time? That one right there. Thank you.
last time, we talked about 4-story. We dropped these down to 3-story. Went 15 plexes, 5 wide, 3 high. I think we've made some adjustments as per the last planning commission meeting we had. We put some balconies on the rear as per, I think it was John that really had a strong opinion on that. And
Corey, can I say something?
Yeah.
You made me remember something from DRC. It was an interesting idea. One idea that was floated earlier in DRC was to keep the same number of units, but have each of the buildings be 4-story, and then you create a lot more open space. It's an idea. It might be the lesser of two evils and make it work better, but I wanted you guys to know, because I just thought that, well, it's interesting.
it is an interesting idea and concept. The thing that, having built 300, 400 of these, we have a range of 3-story and 4-story in all of our projects. I like the look of our 3 stories better. Now, that being said, construction-wise, it's cheaper for us to go up another story, but I do like the look of our 3-story a lot better, and I think these buildings.
Are you adding elevators in your 4 stories?
No, we don't.
Do they
How are
have,
the occupancy rates in the 4-story?
They're the most expensive and the first ones to go.
Because of the view.
And we sell to, 70% of the people we sell to are 20-ish, so their knees are still good.
It's interesting, it's counterintuitive, but that's
How
what
many pictures of the
data
balconies?
shows.
You'll have to keep going. I think there's, keep going, I think there's,
That's who they call when they.
so right
Oh,
here.
right there. Thank
so
you.
where's your entry and, so,
One main entry, right in the center.
How long is that building? For the one entry in the middle? So 80 feet either side, most, that's not bad.
so no entrances on the ends?
No.
Potentially okay.
I got rid of the stairways that we were talking about last time.
That was the comment from the last.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get rid of the stairwells. That's typically what we do, is the stairwells on each end. We put them all into one center location.
And then those end units got bigger.
I like those better.
Oh, here it is. This is what we did.
That was before.
That was last time. This is this time.
So in other cities, you do covered carports, but not the enclosed
Not garages, correct.
The
garages?
cities that let him, just so, the cities that let him.
Be more persuasive.
I think I just haven't been part of the anti-carport conversations, like why? Because,
Well, the
yeah.
garage, is that just an R4 or is that all zones, like the urban village would require the garages as well?
I don't think there is a garage requirement in what the village zone today. What we've done, speak to that kind of direction that we've given Mr. Anderson, is that from an architectural perspective, look at the R4. That's where we have the most detail. That's what you've seen most recently, are projects that have been in conformity with the regulations that we have in terms of design. So felt like if he's hitting the right notes and conforming to that, then approval should be easier. The garages, as we talked about the R4 zone and going to more density than what we previously had allowed for. And I looked this up because of another project that we've been talking about. We explicitly looked at projects that, well, we ended up looking at projects throughout the valley to see what the planning commission at the time did and didn't like. And I still have pictures of projects that have a lot of carports and projects that don't, including projects that have garages. And that was a really significant thing to the planning commission. That was where you guys are now at that point in time, to where even garages were considered to be, you know, maybe the most significant amenity that we could require a developer to provide for residents in the project. So it wasn't just about design, but I think that certainly was still part of it. We wouldn't necessarily say you can't do carports. If you
They
wanted
just
to
wouldn't
do
replace
them,
the garage.
You just have to do the garage first.
Yeah, where they show open parking.
In
you could
addition to
require
the garage.
And-
So yeah, you can do carports too.
And this is owner-occupied HOA
Correct.
with CCNRs. So you can,
Not all owner occupied, correct?
Say that again?
Just those two buildings are not.
It's not all owner occupied, correct?
Yeah, if you want to go back to the,
The two buildings that have retail
but
and
all of them
I'm
will
only
have,
clarifying because Shauna, I know you want to know, so I'm trying to.
yeah, but all of
So-
them have CCNRs.
yeah, well, how the overall development works, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots in this subdivision that we're bringing forth. This is one lot, all the residential. Okay, so this one is another separate lot that I think it would be a good lot to do a mixed use. The project that you spoke of down by Walgreens, that's our project.
I think the retail buildings look awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
They are
and that's-
beautiful. Are they being, I mean, is it working? Are they all
Yeah.
filled?
Yeah, we have a design center and a furniture store in the bottom and apartments on top. And I think that would be a good fit for right here as a good transition into the commercial. And that seems to work. It
So
seems
they're
to
all
work very well.
occupied
Yeah.
and-
And then just like at that project, the condos behind are all sold individually. And we have a cross easement for parking and different things. And so what we do here is, yes, we build these and sell them individually. They are stacked condos. We get FHA approval, so we work with, like I said, about 70% of our projects are sold to 21 to 27-year-olds, newly married individuals. And so we have an on-site manager, we have an HOA, we have bylaws, we have rules and regs. Part of that in our other projects is that there's no more than 2 unrelated adults can be residing in these condos. No more than two parking passes are issued to them, and so the parking is enforced. I did have our traffic study go and do an analysis on 3 of our other projects in Provo and Orem, and our demand is we do not need the 2.5, and I'm happy to show that with you.
These two, are these at 2.5 as well?
Well,
Standalone?
this one, when we laid, the latest one that we've laid out, we've met the 2.5, and I've laid out, I think, on the commercial, I think it was 3 per 1,000. Is that right? Yeah, 3 per 1,000 square feet.
Code 5?
For the non-residential part,
Yeah.
you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's 3 per 1,000 for like an office use.
So do the residences have any parking?
C2 is 5, right?
Yeah, and 2.5
2.5 for those.
for the residences. And it's basically a building just like I have down in Springville. That's the idea.
You mentioned on-site manager. How often are they on-site, Corey?
How what?
How often are they on-site?
They live there. Yeah, they live there.
And I guess my question had to do with that with those enclosed garages, you can regulate that with your,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm joking, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, we've worked through that, and I think enforcing to make sure that it's not a storage unit, that's gonna be the biggest thing. But where we have an on-site manager who lives there, the one in Springville, somebody doesn't pick up their poop, he knows. Their dog poop, not their own poop.
To further address Sean's question, the FHA requires a certain percentage of owner occupied.
Oh, yeah, was there a question?
What was that percentage?
50.
okay. That's good to know. So my thought on this, I guess will be in the comments anyway.
And then no single owner can own more than 10 units. So
10%.
if it's not owner occupied, they can't own more than 10%.
Yeah. We get hit up all the time about buying, investors buying buildings, and it's not allowed under the FHA guidelines. They can't own more than 10% of the project. So in this one, no more than 9 units could one individual buy.
So then you've got these buildings here, and is that 9 businesses that you have?
These ones are 10,000 square, these ones how they are laid out are 10,000 square feet, right?
Yeah, so they could be, typically, people are after between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet for small businesses, so they could be subdivided as small as 2,000.
So that would be 15 different occupants there. And
Michael,
then,
could you go to the other slide so we can see, yeah, that one. I guess my biggest question and thought, I guess for the rest of the commission is, this is a nice area of town. Like, there's a lot of, does this fit with the area of town that it's in? I can see mixed density in this area of town, but do you know what I mean? Like, is this a nice area?
It's zone C2, Shauna.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's right.
I've questioned Dave on that several times.
Right, but it's next to some nice homes, it's next to a nice development on the other side. Like, does that fit in, does the look and the use fit for the?
It's along 2 heavily trafficked roads.
Mm-hmm.
And with an expanding railway line on the other border.
And
So I would say yes.
Yeah. And I think the look, the adjustments you've made make it fit even better than when you were here last month.
I really like the
nice.
adjustments you made. I think you responded to our comments very well. I appreciate that. And I think it's a very pleasing look. The exterior renderings are nice. It looks well done.
Shauna, to your comments, I think that putting the residential towards the back of the, I don't know if it's the back of the project, but
Right,
making the commercial a little bit more prominent and kind of the focal point, I think changes the aesthetics of the project.
Mm-hmm.
And also bringing them down to 3 stories instead of 4, and also the balconies, the backs, because the back is what we were talking about pretty heavily on this road facing Mapleton, because there's gonna be a lot of traffic coming this way, especially as Spanish Fork Parkway gets finished.
But
What
beautiful
are your
views.
thoughts? What are your thoughts on moving the swigs or fizz or whatever it is?
Go like here,
Yeah,
like move
That's
these
feasible
back.
to me, because that just seems to have that over in that area where there's traffic, and it will be traffic a lot of times at this time of night. It seems like it'd be better to get over towards the box store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
If
wouldn't
you
mind
move
flipping
those-
these 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a big issue.
Oh, because that's your main in and out.
Yeah.
To me, your main in and out was
Which
over
there's
by
gonna be
the
a roundabout
grocery
right there.
store.
Feel like that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Right there.
One of the things that I've liked about this project I really appreciate that you've listened to what we said last time too, and I like the concept a lot better. I'm still really excited about what's going to go here, because it has a lot of potential for the east side of town, the northeast side of town, because this is the city boundary. This railroad, that's Mapleton. Mapleton does not have a grocery store yet. However, it makes sense that as they grow, there's going to be one on that highway at some point in time. This would probably delay Mapleton having that because they can come here and they don't have to go to the small mart or down to Walmart. They've got a very convenient place here that adds to the tax revenue of Spanish Fork. And so not only do our citizens in that area have another option where they can go and buy their groceries, but it also will draw people from the other side of the tracks, so to speak. So I like the concept. The one thing that I still would like to see tied somehow is to get this occupant in here as soon as possible, and even preferably before this goes in. However, it's pretty evident that you know, you're planning on this portion at least before this. You would go with phases here, I'm sure, right?
Well, what we're going to do when we get ready to go is we're going to improve this whole 4 South.
Yes.
And also take the utilities all the way and up and through. So we're going to improve and put utilities in the whole site. And then start vertical construction on this.
Right.
This is a lot that we are selling to the grocer, and then I met with them yesterday. They are full steam ahead. They've done their market, their studies. They're doing design. They are proceeding and getting ready to close on this lot.
Awesome.
Now, as per when they start construction, I have.
Well, it's good to
can't
know that
force
there
them.
is somebody that's doing,
Yes.
that's going in there. It's
And
not
they
just
are
an idea.
very excited to come here.
Michael, do we have any concerns about these entrances on this side?
No. Those are service.
Just, well,
the back one is.
They're gonna have just on Spanish Fork Parkway running right along
That's
there.
Spanish Fork Parkway?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
There's room on Spanish Fork Parkway for a right turn in, and then a decel out if we need it. And it's up here, so it's farther from the
roundabout.
Which would be put in at the time that this is developed.
Here.
It's gonna be a roundabout there.
You'd have
There's a light right there right now.
Yeah.
Michael?
But we could change it.
this is an
I live
answer.
just south.
This is an answer to the other question about how it fits in with the neighborhood. Is that these are townhomes now, I believe, aren't they?
Yes.
And so to have
And just for the
townhomes-
record, all these are owned by one individual and they're rentals.
Those are? Oh,
Okay, that's good to know.
that's good to know.
Yes.
Doesn't change anything for me.
Michael,
Well,
you talked about a decel lane on Special Parkway. That would be put in at the time.
You could, yeah, do one. We're still working on the traffic study and such, but yeah, you could have right turn decel.
Then all those improvements I'm saying would be done by the developer at the time they built out that corner.
Yeah, it'd be an impact of the development on the transportation system. So,
My understanding from what AJ's been, this is a full access on this side, right? We bumped that back far enough away from this intersection, we have a full access.
That's good.
This way, we'd like to have a private access for trucks, for.
Yeah, that's gonna
grocery
be an
store.
issue. But it looks like you've got, this is two-way access too.
Yeah, two-way.
So those
and then-
trucks can't, they'll have to come in this way and back in, but they'd never make it back around, so they've got to come this way.
So talking about the parking, what do you guys think about the 2.25?
I think for me, if we could get to where, like we just talked about switching, that building to where it's more of a business that's probably gonna have more likelihood to have vacant stalls at nights, to where there could be like a cross parking on that end unit. I don't have any problem with that cross parking taking up some of the slack that would be, and then allow them to turn the pickleball area into a bigger green space to get rid of those 20 or so parking stalls there.
I agree.
That are on the two sides. I think that'd be a good improvement to the site.
I would like that.
And my only thing that I would add is more connected walking paths, walking trails for the.
Which if we do that, that will allow a lot easier planning for that walkability.
Yes. One thing I will ask about here too is, as we discussed carports and things, I forgot to notice, how much space is there between the curb and the buildings here? Is there some Is there some landscaping that's going in there?
That, as you probably are looking at, is probably a 5-foot walk with a shrub bed in front, and then
Just shrub?
just a shrub bed,
There
yeah.
isn't any grass?
Probably not, no.
And no trees?
Probably ornamentals.
I don't think so. And I was just gonna make a comment about the carports. Is the carports that I've seen, that I don't mind, they have quite a bit of room between the carport and the building that allows for some landscaping. And so it looks a little better, especially after a few years when the trees were up high enough to kind of camouflage that. But when you just put a carport right against the building, it you know, it's not visually very appealing to the bottom story,
Gotcha.
I don't think.
Gotcha.
But if I were parking, coming from for at least half of my adult life, I lived where I had a carport and had an extra vehicle that sat outside of that carport. Believe me, I'd rather have a carport
And then that's,
than
yeah.
nothing. You know, where it snows
Right.
and your wife has to be gone early in the morning, it's kind of nice to have either a carport, but preferably a garage. So in this case, you know, your clientele is a younger clientele that probably won't mind as much, but nonetheless, carports are nice for that reason.
Right.
But I don't think that visually they're very appealing.
They also allow for the green space between, if you have a garage, you're not gonna get sun between the apartment and the garage.
Very
Carport
good.
will allow that, so
Yeah.
it does allow for green space. The one thing that we try to avoid with these younger groups.
Will you come to the mic?
Oh.
TV land is yelling at us.
So one thing that we run into in a lot of our apartments that we do is the green space that's provided. These guys don't have kids, they have dogs. And those places, they get decimated by the animals. And so we're replacing grass with turf, real trees with plastic trees. And it's a management issue, but all the apartments are running into these issues, so.
I have some comments for you guys.
Yeah, I think, comments.
So, some of my concerns are the setback between the 3-story apartment building and the townhomes. Just making sure there's gonna be adequate space so that they're not being shaded necessarily by the 3-story or even feel that way. So I'm not sure what the setback is here, but that'll be a concern of mine. I wouldn't want that business here. I'd want it over here because I don't want the lights from those cars at night to be hitting these houses in these residences in either direction. It doesn't make as much sense unless you can shield the light. Also, I'm for the 2.25 and changing this to some other type of a bigger amenity and green space because I want you to have a cross parking easement for off hours from residents to retail. And moving this over here creates even more parking in this area, which is where I think you need more parking for the residences to go to 2.25. Also, I'm really concerned about the grocery store semi-trucks next to these residences, right here and here. I think that's, they need to be either pushed back, potentially pushed back this direction if you can, and shielded in some way from a loud semi-truck at 7 a.m. when somebody's baby's sleeping in the third floor of that building. Because they are residences, I feel like it's the government's responsibility to make sure that all the people that are using this land are doing it in a way that makes sense for everyone. Also, I'm concerned about the phasing of the development, and I think the urban village zone, even if we manipulate it quite a bit, is likely to be inadequate for us making sure that the grocery store goes in there and the retail goes in there, because again, it's supposed to be a commercial area first. Although I actually do like the residences here. I think it makes sense if it's done well. But I think you're going to be looking at a development agreement potentially to bind the city and bind you as far as phasing. Other than that, I'd like to see some other amenity when this expands. I get that you're saying it's 21 to 27. I'd be curious with the changing market if the residences are going to be older than you're expecting in this area, And I want to accommodate more than just the 21 to 27-year-old single or newlyweds with young kids as well.
My thought on that is I can see,
I think that's it. I think that's all I had for my comments. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going on to what you said, so I tried is I could see retired people saying, oh, I want to live close to my kids who live in Mapleton, and they don't want to do a very big place, so they would come to this. Anyway, that goes along with your last.
So you're saying 2 pickleball courts?
Yeah, I was thinking even maybe a pavilion, barbecue type area.
And that would be the type of amenities that we would like to do.
Or even like a kids taught playground, not even massive, just something for the kids.
And that's what we have done in our other projects, pickleball, pavilion, tot lot.
And because I think that'd be cool there, it's another reason I don't want that to be shining into that all the time. I'd rather it come over here. I can sense that you want it over here as much as possible. That's probably the spot that I'd be okay with. I think it'd be fine here. I mean, it would do really well.
I think the reason it's there is because of the pie-shaped nature of that.
That makes sense.
It made sense for a smaller building there, but it definitely is locked. It just.
Yeah, and
this access isn't necessarily have to go right there. I think you guys, does it?
It does.
It
Has to.
matches, it lines up with.
Okay.
But even with the shape of that lot, if you flip the two like you talked about, you still are utilizing that same space.
yeah, bringing this over to here, if we don't like that, probably what's going to happen is this lot is going to be made bigger, and that's going to go away.
Because moving a bigger building over there, you reduce the count of parking.
Yeah, if we move this over to here, this won't,
Right.
It won't park.
Right.
And
But
then
you could flip you could flip those two.
we can flip these two.
Right.
If you do, I'm just worried about, I'm worried about the vehicles' lights shining into residences. But it's pretty okay, it might be okay there. And we could do like a little berm or something on the landscape.
There are ways to screen that.
Exactly, we can
In
screen
fact,
it. Yeah.
that's where the artwork goes.
It's, yeah.
The Urban Village Zone talks about berms and that type of thing.
That might work.
What other comments do we have for them as they're going forward?
Yeah, I gave my comments. I think it's, the only concern I had is just the flipping of those two and everything else. I do appreciate Joseph's comments on the phasing, a way to ensure that it's done in a proper order. That's great.
I think that we've all, said the sentiment, but we appreciate you hearing what we've said in the previous meetings and doing the design changes, trying to figure out a way to make the grocer work with the other parts of it. And then, to Joseph's point, just making sure that we are working on that phasing to make sure that we want that grocer there. If you can't hear that.
And that footprint of the grocer isn't the grocer. That's just one that's been used.
Right.
They can be made to have a turnaround there for the trucks to turn around there, and a wall could go up to the residence. So that was just the footprint that was used to place all
The square footage is what they are designing, but it's going to be definitely that.
Right.
That's from Google.
Yeah. Any other comments?
When you switch it to 2.25, maybe take a look at, if you can, because of the grocery store going here, moving these over a little bit more, and then like you're saying, some sort of screening here for the residences versus from the grocery store.
I think that dead end stall that you see in the right-hand top corner could be switched.
Over here?
Oh,
You would
yeah.
switch it over and then.
Do that.
There you go.
That would help.
Yeah.
Or even split in half, where you have half of it on that side now and the other half on that side. I could see that being good
Yeah,
for
that'd
them.
help.
Good thought.
Good idea.
Thanks, guys. Any other questions for us?
I don't think so. I think that's all my questions.
Perfect.
So moving forward, I'll get with you tomorrow.
Day will be here at 8.
Do we start to build a zone around this? Is that the next step for us? And I say that around a modified version of this, as you guys have described.
And how many acres is this?
14.
15. Do you?
50.
I guess my last question is,
Yes.
does the density meet the R4 zone that that they're kind of modeling it after?
It does, but for the amenities, there's not enough amenities.
I would say it depends on how you measure it, but yes, I think.
It meets the parking requirements, it meets the open space. I'm not sure the density on that. I think
It
this is
doesn't front a
17 to this
public
year.
right away. I mean, there's a lot of things it does not do. Not enough amenities.
Okay.
Things like that.
Density
But
and
this is not
parking, I think,
particularly dense.
What's the square footage of the units?
900. Square feet. 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Oh, yeah, with this design, these ones are gonna probably grow, what? Yeah, so the end units will be a little bit bigger now.
Perfect.
It'll be nice.
Okay.
So, well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike, we didn't get through all the slides, you were slacking. We went through them all and all the way back through the backwards. No, you never made it to the back.
Actually, it's some good slides. It looks good. It looks
There
good.
you
I've
go.
seen it because I went to.
Yeah, we had that.
I feel so much better.
Next time, don't put 78 plus
Oh, there's 17 more roundabouts.
Oh, wait.
Thanks, Michael.
Hold on.
17 more roundabouts.
Oh, yeah. Where's that second entrance? Is that along 400 North?
Those are both 400 North.
So there's 2 entrances into this
Yeah.
on 400 North? I didn't see that.
One would just be right in and right out, so it'd be a limited
Oh, right
access,
there.
but.
Oh, good, I was looking for that.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
That's
Just one
good.
roundabout.
I like those.
Signal.
So that's 2 more roundabouts on 400 North.
No, just one. Just one.
Okay.
I'll give the torch to
They all go in doubles.
Okay, now we go back to.
Get dizzy on 400 North.
How many more of these are we doing tonight?
One more.
You doing one more? Is
Do I
that
have- do I have one more?
One more?
We haven't had a midnight meeting in a long time.
Mr. Bankhead was here early, so it was before 6 o'clock. It's all good. I hope I told you that it probably wouldn't be right at 6.
You probably didn't. You're probably like, hey, show up at 5:30 just in case.
It'll be a quick meeting.
Show up at 5:30. Uh-oh.
Thank you. Not even 9:30.
Thank you.
This next site is unique, and Mr. Bankhead has put together a pretty detailed
This is
concept plan. Get warmer. There you go. I'll
You're
zero
building a new
part of
golf
this
course? I'm in.
Second.
I want the first tee time.
He was trying to say continue.
Oh, I just see a golf course. It looks great.
Golf
But
course.
you need a quick break.
That'll be discussed.
Yes,
Yes.
I need a break.
I'll have a front row view.
I want a break. 5
Okay.
minutes.
It's all you.
Mr. Chairman, should I proceed?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Go, go, go.
Joseph drank a Red
This is
Bull
a
before.
really unique site, and sometimes when we start to look at specific plans for sites, I kind of feel like we jump the gun a little bit, but yet without being able to see how something can lay out and what's proposed, it's hard to envision how something can work. But first of all, for me, really, what I'm looking to get from you is direction just on fundamental land use. And from there, we can get into details. This property, this is the Western Distribution Center here, huge building. I don't know if it's all one parcel, I think maybe it's more than one, but there's one owner that owns all of this. They acquired the property last summer. And I had met on a few occasions with the previous owners about part of this property that's right over here, is they really thought that it would be a great place for some residential development. And when I look at it like this, for me, it's really easy to say that's a terrible idea. In fact, with this entire
It's really
setting,
strong. Like,
big zone, yeah,
I
I mean,
don't know.
it's just, case closed, easy.
Hmm.
Plan view, aerial image, zoned industrial, this access here, which is the one-way to and from 1 million square feet of warehouse and distribution space.
Private road.
Easy call. Now, that being said, this is where I think we're really handicapped, but I appreciate the presentation that we'll go through with John here in a minute. When you get on the property, you get a different feeling. about just what may or may not work there. At least
Field
I
trip.
do. I think that's certainly important. Even those of us who on staff have been out there recently, it does warrant, I think, a different type of consideration because largely of the topography of the site. And Mike, I'm not sure what all images we have included in this, or maybe we just, John, I don't know if you want to take the lead on any of this. But for starters, it's a matter of land use. Considering whether or not the zoning should be changed to allow for some residential development here is as much as anything what we want to get out of you tonight. If you want to go into more detail about anything, we'd love to get feedback on that from you as well. So that being said, like I said, John Bankett's here to present on the project. You want to take over?
John Bankhead with Vesta Partners, so thank you for staying up late. We acquired this property, and it is all one parcel at the end of last summer, and we've been mowing ahead on the industrial portion and want to get moving on some more industrial product, and I was driving out there several months ago, and I had a new Bronco, and I was like, I wonder what it can do, and so I started driving on this side of the project because there was a dirt road, and I was antsy. And as I got down there, I was quite surprised that because of the topography, if we could maybe go to the next slides of just the actual images of the, one more please. So this is taken on the top of the hill that's, in the Finger Hut Road, the road that leads to the industrial is behind me. But you have about a 30-foot, in some cases 40-foot grade differential between the industrial land and this large bench that overlooks the golf course and the river and has really quite incredible views. And the next couple of slides just show a couple of images of various places on the site. And I thought, this is exceptionally protected. You get down there, it feels really quiet. And it struck me as a really beautiful spot. You're looking over at the golf course, you're looking at the mountains, and you don't have an idea that Highway 6 is just a stone's throw away or Powerhouse Road. So we've started looking at this and thought that maybe an appropriate use would be some type of a residential use. And so we've drawn up a draft plan. It is by no means perfect, and we realize there are several issues that we are continuing to work on, from traffic and fire access and power and those kind of things. But wanted to have a conversation with you about, on this particular portion of the site, does some type of residential use feel appropriate? And if so, I'd love to have a conversation about what that looks like. Is it condos? Is it townhomes? Is it single family lots? We've done some demographic and market research, and we have some reasons that we drew what we drew. That doesn't make it right. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about what that product is and what are some of the concerns or opportunities that you guys see for this site. But would ultimately really like to do something here that is, we think residential. And that really helps us move forward with, we have about 600,000 feet of industrial up on the higher portion of the site that we're excited to proceed with.
John, what size single-family residential lots could you fit on there?
It's got some narrow, the entire parcel that we're proposing is about 17 acres. A lot of that has some funky topography on it. And so we're going to have to work with hillside ordinances and setbacks. You probably can't get a whole lot of larger, quarter acre lots. I think if you did 5,000 and 7,000 foot kind of cottage lots, that would be something that could work. You're going to have some pretty good expense in getting the roads to get down around there. So one of the interesting things that we did is we said, we just looked at the market, the demographics, the household size, the annual income for folks in Spanish Fork. One of the things we found was interesting, the average selling price for a home, a single family home, is $120,000 more than, well, you can see on the kind of on the right side middle. The average townhome in Spanish Fork right now is $420,000, and the average single family home is $580,000.
How old is that data?
This is just within the last week, and I have the references down at the bottom. And if you look at the average household size, which is 3.7, and the median income, one thing that we found interesting is that to afford a single-family home with its mortgage and tax payment, that is about 49% of the average annual income, whereas the townhome product or some other, it could be condos, that's more in the 30 to 35%. So we found that interesting, and that the inventory of townhomes and their duration on the market in Spanish Fork leads us to believe that that's typically what the market is looking for. Now, one of the things we heard, and I actually wanted to ask this question, and Dave and Brandon talked to us about townhome fatigue, and there are a lot, and I wanted to actually ask, when I've heard that phrase, what is, what kind of, that's one of the things, what kind of product, condos, townhomes, apartments, single family, talk to me about some of your pros and cons and the concerns. This date is kind of what led us to an initial pass at a site plan, but that's only one perspective.
I'll give you my opinion, and it's just my opinion. But I've said that in these meetings before, that I have a son who grew up in Spanish Fork, was educated in Spanish Fork, taught school in Spanish Fork, would love to have built a home in Spanish Fork, and he's in Mapleton now because the upper end homes aren't being built in Spanish Fork on a regular basis. And we haven't seen a lot of those come to us. Quarter-acre lots are even fairly scarce now. Now, because of the median, it may not fit the median income, but you've got a lot of people in Spanish Fork now that have a higher income that can afford that higher house, and they're going to, above Salem up towards Woodland Hills and Elk Ridge and to Mapleton to build their homes. Spanish Fork has very few areas that are conducive to single-family homes. Single-family homes like large lots and they like view lots. And there's a subdivision that was built in Spanish Fork with 1 acre lots, and the price of the lots were just really high, and I thought they'll never sell. Every lot is sold in that subdivision, and some people bought 2 lots to accommodate their house. So there's a market for everything.
No, absolutely.
And when you talk about a view lot, a beautiful lot of mountains, river, golf course on the other side, I just happen to live on the other side of the river and up on the hill. So I'm going to see you out of my window. And the homes that are around me are going to be pretty much, they have been all quarter to third and even up to about 3/4 acre lots on the road that I happen to live on. Phase 2 has been approved up there on 1/4 acre and a couple of lots that are less than that. I know the area very well, and I've actually, when I was a kid, I camped on that flat more than once because it is protected a little bit, and we'd go up and stay there overnight. And it's always been a beautiful place to me. Up higher where all of the commercial is, or all of the industrial is, it's a little bit of a different thing. And so when you say it's protected and you don't know that all those things are around, that to me says that it's a perfect place for single-family units on somewhat larger lots, with a 1/4 acre being the least, or the smallest lot that I'd like to see. Although you can build almost anything you build on a 1/4 acre, sometimes that doesn't accommodate what people want for the rest of their lot. I am very aware of the cost of the utilities that'll have to be put in there and everything like that. But considering what my son just spent for a lot in Mapleton, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think that a developer with the right product can go in there with a lot fewer units and do very well, and do something that would be bought up probably pretty quickly, because the really high-end homes that are being built now are either with views or at least close to the mountains. The big areas in Mapleton right now are in the little valleys that come off of the mountain. This is, I don't know that there's another place in Spanish Fork right now that is going to be able to be built in a place like this. And so personally, I think that it's been quite a while since we have seen any kind of development that was on the top end of things. Everything has been, well, we need to accommodate the lowest levels, and there's no doubt, you just saw what the proposals were tonight here, and that's what we're seeing now. And so I would like to see an area like this preserved for a larger home and a higher end home, and I think there is a market for it, and I think this is a good place for it, and Spanish Fork would be really proud of something like that.
I agree. I think selling quarter, half acre, 1 acre lots here, you could sell them all day long. We won't get very many, which is okay. The market for that is fantastic. An interesting conversation, we are talking with a Fortune 500 company that's looking at putting a fairly significant manufacturing facility, and they're looking at Ogden. They were looking at Salt Lake, and then they're looking at Spanish Fork. They ruled out Salt Lake because there's no workforce. They just can't get anybody to go show up, and the people that do show up can't pass background checks. And I'm telling Dave this, he's already heard it before. One of the things that has been really, in Ogden, they have 14 million square feet of existing warehouse, and they have about 2.5 more that needs to be built. Their labor force, they can't support the kind of jobs these people bring. And so one of the things that is attractive to this group and other groups like Amazon, who was going to come here before they ran into their financial issues, has been the quality of the employee at it's an affordable thing. And as we were looking at this, and one of our thoughts that led us to this was it'd be really pretty fantastic if you could work at a Fortune 500 company and you could get a lot or a home that, be it big, small, or otherwise, but something that you could afford where you had views and golf course and things like that, and you were able to be employed in Spanish Fork, particularly close to your house. So I think that we're open to anything. I think we can, I'm not concerned about selling quarter and half acre lots here. That actually would be fairly simple, and I agree with you that there would be great demand. That was some of the thinking that led us in this, but just a thought.
So workforce housing.
No.
Right there.
No. Well, these homes that are going to, the average is $420,000. That's not, that's.
Is there any type of housing that's not workforce housing?
No, I just mean like.
If you have a job and you live in a house, is that not workforce housing?
Right, okay. So anyway, my question for you is, John, were you done? I didn't want to interrupt. So my question is that's right above I live right close by there too. And so that's right above a trail that's called the Dripping Rock Trail. And so there's an aquifer that goes right through that hill. I just am wondering, can you build?
Yeah, so there's some
close to the edge of the hill.
Let's go back to the other, the earlier site plan if we could. So there are several issues. We've got the irrigation canal that you've talked about. We have some power lines that are owned by the Strawberry Power Company. We've got an access that we're trying to work through with UDOT up off of Highway 6 onto Gomex Road. I think there are lots of those issues that I think we can work through. We do want to have a trail system that runs through whatever project ends up here. We think that actually, and you can kind of see it in brown, that going over that irrigation canal, piping that and using that as part of the trail, this is conceptual. But then tying it into the existing trail that goes up the canyon and up to the reservoir up there would be fantastic. So we think that we can get some really nice open space in here. We think we can connect it with trails. We think that we can make this a really nice place, but there are definitely some just logistical issues that we're going to have to work through of slope, hillside stability, the aquifer. We're aware of those. Before we jumped in and started to say, let's go solve these problems, we just wanted to see if the city was open to having some type of a residential use here.
Any other thoughts on what type of housing, no housing?
Yeah, I do. I want to drive it, so my comments are pre-driving it.
Fantastic.
But I'm not somebody has townhome fatigue. In fact, that was brought up in a meeting I was in, and I even expressed that. I think what matters about townhomes is that they're nice. I would like them to be on the higher end as far as aesthetics and interior finishing, so that the residences there are proud to live there. So I think townhomes could potentially work there. I really am intrigued by this 6-foot-high solid wall, followed by a berm and landscape buffer, because it really could, depending on how you do this, it really could feel very exclusive and private, and like you said, beautiful. The pictures I just saw, they'd have amazing views. I do warn us, because I've played the back nine of the Oaks in the morning, and it's like Tiger Woods golf in gale force winds. It's like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Right.
So this is a very windy area, which is why I wonder about these people wanting to invest in these bigger lots, properties there. I wonder, but maybe it could also work.
Eagle Drive, we don't mind it.
Okay. Well, I live in the wind corridor. It's just much farther away, but yeah. I don't know.
And that is a concern, by the way. You know, I have had neighbors that have since moved to find a less windy place.
Okay.
However, when you're talking about townhomes and the availability of them, we just okayed a very large area between the tracks that is just on the other side of Powerhouse Road. Just went right through the first track, you'd be in the middle of the new townhomes that are going there. There's another development that is down on Bottoms Road and up on the hill, right next to, it's just off from Canyon Road. And they haven't sold any of those lots that I know of yet, but they're all ready to. And then we have another single-family home development that's between the tracks. So there's going to be a lot. I mean, if I were building here, or if I were going to have a manufacturing facility and wanted people here, there are a ton of homes that are going to be available right in this area, and possibly a grocery store closer than the mini mart right here. And so it's a great place. All I'm saying is if you don't build a top-end home in this place, where will we build it? Just like we plan our street, you know, our busiest intersections is where we want our commercial developments and stuff like that, make it convenient for the population and stuff like that.
It's in the parking lot of an industrial building.
Yeah, you're looking at adding how much more industrial.
You can't
I'm
see
seeing
that
both
building.
sides of this coin here.
But you can't see that building.
I haven't
from there.
driven it yet, so I'm not sold on what I'm saying.
But it
I'm
looks
just-
like your plans to add more buildings closer.
Let's go, so up on the, if we can go down a couple of slides.
So are some of those up on?
Yeah, see.
So one more up, please.
Go back.
So this is an older townhome plan, but we are planning, there are three good-sized industrial buildings. The largest one is about 300,000 square feet, and then they go down to some more flex office-type space that are up there. So
are you planning on having those, see, none of those all look like they're a ways, are they below the road there? Would any of their roof lines be visible from the industrial land? Because it drops off, like you said.
it does.
between
There's a
20 and
top,
40 feet.
there's a flat spot that's basically at the same level of the roadway, and you'd probably have some
Right
townhomes
through
up
here.
there, and you know, if those are 2 or 3 story product, will they be able to see the industrial? Yes, and that's one of the reasons we've talked about putting a 6-foot concrete sound wall and some landscaping, because we don't want it to feel like you're an industrial park. I envision you come in here and you feel like, oh, this is the Garden of Eden. This is nice. The views are spectacular, and the units would face to take advantage with the topography. Every unit should have a great view, or every home, or whatever we end up with there.
But you step outside that berm, you're in an industrial park.
Yes.
No doubt.
And it may be
And
that
you're going to be sharing an industrial road.
John, and I don't think my slice can reach that far.
we'll put bulletproof glass in whatever
Now, tell
goes
me the
in.
truth, have you ever tried to hit a ball across the gorge onto that side?
No, never.
I have.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right up here on this tee.
We are, you know, one of the things that I'm really working with, and I've been in some preliminary conversations with UDOT, is trying to, I've had a traffic engineer run some preliminary numbers, and they don't think that the amount of traffic on that road, even at full build-out, is concerning about the mixing of the residential and industrial. They're like, hey, they're gonna mix on Powerhouse Road immediately. I'm really hoping that we can get an access from UDOT on Gomex Road, which is just the east side of the project that goes right. No, it's down below the overpass.
Yeah, UDOT's
You
great
can
to
kind of
work
see
with.
it right there.
You shouldn't have any problems.
Well, that, yeah.
Or
I'm actually really good friends with the folks at UDOT. We get along really well.
They are great, actually.
And
Yeah, some of them.
So I climb with one of their main right-of-way guys 3 times a week. So he's a good rock climber. But anyway, that actually seems to be an opportunity for us that they're not opposed to. That would help with fire access concerns, and if we could take a lot of the truck traffic and get it directly onto Highway 6, that might help. And those are all issues that we're
The residents
working through.
would like that.
And as I said, that's just my opinion, and it certainly isn't this commission's opinion.
But that's a good opinion,
But
and I appreciate you.
I'll defend that opinion because I think that it's obvious that it is a true
It's a great spot.
evaluation of what's being built in Spanish Fork right now. There's some awfully nice homes, don't get me wrong, over in, well, just north of here and stuff in there. There's a lot of nice homes. But that upper end home isn't being built.
I guess to Dave's earlier question, is anyone opposed to housing here?
No.
Not yet. I want to drive it.
Yeah, I
and
wanna drive
John knows it the best. So far, I'm extremely interested in his opinion. He knows the area really well.
I will go do donuts with any of you in the Bronco, but you know, I can't.
My
vouch for your
car
safety.
needs some off-roading too.
Yeah.
It's only on the street all the time. It's not built for that.
That's not. Yeah, I encourage you to go up there. There's a dirt road. It's very easy to just walk out and look down on the bench and see it. There are photographs in the packet. Would like to, you know, if you guys are not generally opposed to residential, I know that there's a conversation about what that is. We may continue to just work on some of the logistical issues, the power, the water, the access and things like
Maybe a
that.
combination of both.
Of mix.
You know, I'm not opposed to mixing those a little bit. But I think another great place, of course, right now, it's snowy and bad, but a good view is from that 10th fairway. You know, looking right over there. It's
You're
really
thinking
easy
of
to see where the
buying
good
it from the
spots
city?
are. From
Building
there.
some houses there?
No, he's saying you can look at it.
You can see it from there.
Springtime
Or you can come up
golf,
to my, or you can
planning
come up to my
commission.
house and we'll look
Sounds
at
good.
it through the window.
I like that.
No, it's a beautiful area. I like it. And
That 10th hole though. Oh.
If anybody would like, we would be more than happy by whatever your schedules would allow to run you up there. We've got vehicles that I'd be comfortable taking anytime.
John has a Bronco. That sounds already better than your offer.
It's already muddy.
brand new one.
Sounds way better than what you're
New
saying.
enough, it was used, but.
How about a 2022 Jeep Cherokee?
Yeah, now we're getting somewhere.
Poor guy, so.
It's all good.
John Cox, but honestly, I do think, for better or worse, and some of you might feel differently if you get up there and look at it, but for me, it changed my perspective, get a different perspective, I think, than you do. Like I said, looking at it plan view, and I mean that, a half hour would be enough time to run up there, get a good feel for what it's about, and we could go from there. If you'd like, we could try to do that. Again, schedule maybe between now and your January meeting, and
Come
maybe
back.
circle back then. That-
Yes.
There are a couple of
Feels
things
like
that you want to
kind of
keep
our
in
job, so
mind
let's
there.
do it.
You know,
Yeah,
the
it's a good
canal's
idea.
there.
Otherwise, it's going to be vacant
But
forever. Let's at
because
least see
you're
if it's worth doing something.
You'll want to, you know, one of the
Unlike
things that we
Highway
had
6
to
and
do
Canyon
on the
Road,
property
that
above is they
project
got
we
that
saw earlier.
large retention basin.
Yep.
For all the
Dead on arrival.
water, and that wasn't allowed to go into the canal. They had to go
Good.
over it and down to the river. Hence the large retention basin.
Yep.
Because the state gets pretty,
Controlling?
yeah, they don't like that. And where that gorge is, it's gonna be really hard to come down off there anyway. Very, very rocky near the river. I guess you've probably gone up.
We have gone up and
Beautiful place though.
And it is a windy. I I grew up working a lot in Spanish Fork, wiring homes and working in things. It was funny that I wired the Vorhees house like 25, 30 years ago when I was a kid. I sat down, I was like, yeah, it was kind of funny. But yeah, it's a windy place. They're up shoveling snow off that roof right now.
There you go.
And they actually had a portion of it collapse in the winter before anybody was in it.
We are getting
Had
that
to come
fixed.
back and design that, the roof, how it comes down off of the upper part to the lower part.
Turns out that is not working as advertised, so we're going in and doing all the structural right now.
man. Good luck.
So, hey, I appreciate your time, and it'd be great if you guys drove out, and love to get any other feedback you have.
Give the city more.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, thanks.
I'd like to see it
Move
go.
it a little up in the next meeting, just like it on the agenda. No, that's all good. I'm used to this, it's all good.
Ready for the next one?
Are you?
I think so.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you. It's a big deal. You got.
It's a big deal.
You got the.
Todd thought he was done.
What isn't a big deal?
In your joint meeting
Believe it?
with the city council.
One of this.
Wait,
I drink it.
are street trees part of this?
This, not as a requirement.
The agenda says parking
Yeah,
requirement.
I'm gonna lose a lot of weight. I'm gonna lose a lot of weight soon.
This is a work in progress.
The parking.
I'm sharing it with you from that perspective.
Are we not?
Pretty good.
With
So
the
this isn't.
idea that we've got to act on this in
Saying
January,
that
and
we
I'm
are
saying
parking,
that because of direction that I've been given.
Your job's on the line.
I will have an updated version of this. This is exactly what I emailed, by the way, also.
Question,
Yes.
are we not doing number 7,
Parking requirements?
Next, how about that?
I accept.
I move that we continue it.
Take a break.
Why don't we table it for a month?
How about, I'm done talking about landscaping, so.
Oh, you're already
we'll have
done? You just
another
started.
Updated version that you'll get sometime in the next few weeks, but we hope to get it where you'll be ready to act on it in January. So we need to get there.
So you just
Okay.
passed this. This is reading material.
If you'd like.
Okay, yeah.
Very good.
I like reading material.
At your leisure.
Thank you.
Parking.
What leisure?
How long do you have on parking? There's some people that are wanting breaks, it sounds like.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, got it.
I
You might
have,
want
do it.
more.
I have thoughts on parking.
So-
Sorry. I actually drove some townhome projects, so I apologize ahead of time. I have some thoughts.
Oh, good.
Okay, let's hit it.
Okay.
If people need to take breaks, they can, and we can go from
From
there.
what we talked about in your last meeting, I did not know what to do. I'm still not sure about what to do, honestly. Like,
I think
the
you should
idea
keep
that
your
we
day
go
job,
out
Dave.
in some type of a scientific way as a group, but working individually and try to come up with an apples for apples way to measure what works and what doesn't work,
We need Brandon sitting in parking lots doing counts.
that could work.
Me and
In
Jackson.
fact, that's a proven methodology.
Play the fudge.
So
Yeah, pass that plate of fudge up here.
here's my
We'll take yours and then pass it around.
here's my
I'm not taking one.
What aren't you taking?
I've eaten a bunch already today.
I'm gonna take one.
We have had really
Thank
good luck in the past
We saved one for.
with BYU students on classwork, if we get the right class. And this is not a done deal, but a professor from BYU has offered 7 students, again, not a totally done deal, we're supposed to talk tomorrow, to do a detailed analysis on parking for us that would involve taking what our intern presented to you on about a year ago, building upon that and incorporating in a review of some boots on the ground, inventories of parking in different developments around, as well as a review of some of the parking studies that developers have had done in the valley to identify how much parking is utilized and needed, and any other things that might come about after we have some conversations, hopefully between them and you, with the idea that we would be able to use winter semester, like 3 months of that time, to add a little bit more just flesh to the discussion.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
great.
Yes.
As long as we don't rely,
Data-driven
as long as we don't rely
decisions.
too much on developers' feedback.
But just have them avoid I don't want any data from LA or New York or Oakland.
Or at noon on Wednesday.
Salt Lake City, for instance, like.
We need to make sure times
Probably not.
that they're getting their data, like times of the day that they're getting their data, probably is gonna be pretty important.
Yeah.
They could even come talk to us at the beginning and we could tell them.
I think that would be really good for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Again, somewhat tentative, but
Great idea.
we're supposed to talk tomorrow. And if you're comfortable with it, then
Absolutely.
Yes.
to try to make it work, so.
I think it's a great idea.
Love it.
If they're gonna do
Pretty
that,
good.
if
You're
they'll
done.
make that kind of a commitment, that's a great deal. I've used BYU students before in engineering. And, you know, they don't get very many opportunities to do stuff like this where they're actually the boots on the ground. And so they work pretty hard. They sometimes get off on tangents and you gotta rein them in a little bit, but hey, they're great.
Let's do it.
I loved having them.
I think especially if they come and talk to us ahead of time, they know this is real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
It's not just a pet project that Dave's sending them on.
Great
idea.
Wild goose chase.
Great idea.
Anything else with that?
I'll go that route. I'll report back as soon as I know more.
I have a question. What is your expectations from us? Read it, email you feedback?
That would be great.
Okay.
Email, call.
Perfect.
Okay.
Whatever's easiest for you.
This is just in paper form what we were talking about then.
But it's the same as the email, right?
Yes.
Are both of these in the email?
It's exactly the same.
Is it exactly what you emailed us today?
It's precisely the same.
Oh, I read it all.
Is he really not listening to anything?
Joseph doesn't hear anything that anyone says.
Voice.
I scanned through it, but
Ask him.
I didn't read it
Hey
all.
Joseph, did you hear Todd talk?
What did Todd say?
That's what I thought.
I was speaking here. Just kidding.
And do you want us to adjourn before your next part, or?
I move that,
I would love for you to adjourn if you're ready.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good meeting, guys.
Go team.
If I were.